Hello, welcome to the THC Show. This is the fourth year plus 1 week episode of the THC Show. Last week we celebrated 200 episodes, and we were going to check and see when that first episode was because I thought it was later in August, and it turns out it was on the 6th of August that we first aired the THC Show back 4 years ago. So last week was also the end of the fourth season. And we're still on the same theme as we've always been, of course. And so really pleased to be starting the fifth year of the THC Show. Really unhappy that we're starting the fifth year of the THC Show on the same damn theme. I got to tell you, I am outraged. I am just beside myself angry at Health Canada and the federal government. They should really be ashamed of themselves. How dare they? How dare they decide that they can rule over people's life and death issues after pondering our application for almost 3 years. In a month from now, it'll be 3 years since we applied to Health Canada for an exemption. In fact, we applied at that time for an emergency exemption from the Cannabis Act, along with our application for a straight-up exemption or a special license of some sort, to be able to continue the life-saving work that we had been doing already by that time for over 3.5 years. There were no licenses to apply for when we started the CSP. We started it because we had inside knowledge that cannabis edibles, proper dose edibles, could rescue people from addiction. And we were at the beginning of what is now in its 8th year of a public health emergency of overdose and death. The cannabis community, with a citizens' initiative, came together, and with donations and volunteer support and support from the entire cannabis community, we started handing out cannabis proper dose edibles to people that would line up to get them. Hundreds of people every week lined up to get them. After 2.5 years of doing that, we finally got City Council in Vancouver to support us. We asked for that before we started. It took 2.5 years. So 2.5 years into this program, we got City Council to say that they would not only support us, but we should go and get a storefront. We had a good meeting with Rebecca Bly. Go get a storefront. We'll license you. So we found a storefront. Thank God. Get those poor people off the street. Poor, disabled, addicted, homeless, broke people that would come and stand in a lineup for hours just to get a little bag with a few edibles in it, half a dozen edibles. Through the rain and the snow and the heat and the wind and we never missed a day, and we always had a lineup around the block, those poor people. Get them into a storefront. Operate every day. Give them some dignity. So we did. Except city licensing was unaware of all this going on and decided that, no, you can't do that without having a provincial license, they said. We were already open. We've been open for a couple of weeks by the time city licensing just randomly showed up and said, no, you're not on the list of dispensaries that have applied, you can't be doing this, and they sent threatening letters to me and to my landlord. So right away we tried to apply to the provincial government, but that lasted one afternoon and we knew that wasn't going to fly. So we applied to the federal government, the Special Licensing and Exemption Division of Health Canada, and to Patty Haydu, the federal health minister. We sent our application to both of those people. 3.5 years after we had already been running the program. Hundreds of people relying on us to keep them off the hard drugs. Once we opened the store, we registered the people that had been lining up as members, gave them a number, took some information from them. 250 people initially, now up to 269 people, that were rescued from addiction here on the downtown east side of Vancouver over the course of that time. But city licensing says, no, you can't be in a store doing that. Not without a license from, well, it turns out the federal government. So we applied. We put together an amazing application. Spent hours and hours and hours putting together this application with all the science, with testimonials from many of the people that had been helped by us. Letters from Dr. M.J. Malloy, Professor Zachary Walsh, the foremost expert in the field. We put together an application on purpose that they couldn't say no to. And they didn't say no to it for almost 3 years. They stalled and delayed and just took their time and let the time go until they sent us an intent to deny letter. April 22nd last year. Their intent was to deny our application, but we had a chance to respond. They're going to deny it because all of our products here are not through the regulated cartel market. And their other reason, because, well, we shouldn't be allowing Canadians to have access to proper dose edibles unless there's a doctor monitoring their progress. Both ludicrous. I'm outraged. Those are absolutely ridiculous reasons to deny the very existence of a program that is proven to save lives, hundreds of them. Outrageous, shameful. So we responded and explained it properly. My lawyer did. 6 months go by, and they send us another intent to deny. Pretty much just mimicking what they had said in the first one. We had given them, in our application and in our response, several avenues to have our supply regulated and, part of the system. They ignored all of that. We explained to them that we can't have doctors supporting the use of proper dose edibles for the people that we're helping because there aren't doctors to do that. There's millions of Canadians in mainstream public that can't get a doctor. These people can't get a doctor. These people have barriers to getting doctors. Doctors don't like dealing with the marginalized people, which is really sad because they're probably the ones that they should be helping first. It's the ones that really need it. But if you really need a doctor and you've got some serious problems, especially emotional or mental problems, yeah, good luck with that. Not to mention, probably the majority of the people that we're helping have a phobia about the medical system and doctors because they've had bad experiences with doctors in the medical system. They don't trust them. They would not get a doctor if they could. So what, we're just supposed to turn our backs on these people and say, sorry, I know we've been helping you for years and I know there's no place for you to go to get what it is that you've been getting from us. Sorry about that. Your public servants in Ottawa, have made that decision and they're probably wiser than we are. No, they're not. They're a bunch of corrupt idiots over there. Unethical, corrupt idiots. How dare they? How dare they sit in Ottawa and make decisions on the very lives of people 3,000 miles away without ever even coming here and checking it out, without ever even having conversations with us about what we're doing, how it's working, what the right things to do are, from their point of view and from our point of view. This is Health Canada. They're charged with looking after the health and well-being of Canadians. I would love to have input from a wise, educated group of caring people who would like to help us help people even better than we are. That would be great. Of course, the bottom lines are they can't raise the prices for people because it puts up a barrier. It has to be low cost and no cost cannabis available here. They can't compromise the medical quality of what we're doing here. We would have to see some proper science on the irradiation of cannabis and what that does to terpenes and other medically active components of the plant. We don't want to compromise that either. But short of that, help us. Help us. Give us some funding. Give us some direction. Help us have proper standardized dosages of edibles. Because that's important. But no discussions whatsoever. They want a regulated supply. License our suppliers. Easy. A little bit of scrutiny perhaps, but you don't even really need scrutiny on the people that have been supplying us for years here. We've been doing this for 6.5 years. We've never had one single complaint. There's never been any medical issue with anybody to do with cannabis that somehow wasn't safe. I mean, that must be their reason, mustn't it? That the cannabis must not be safe if it's not properly regulated. Isn't that what it must be? No. No. They've never stated that. And what they have stated clearly indicates that that's not what it's about. It's about the head of the cartel, Mr. Trudeau, getting his cut. They can't make a buck. They're not about to support it. Because they're absolutely fleecing Canadians with their so-called legalization. And they don't want to have that stopped or interfered with. This is about a government that has become a cartel, that has decided to monopolize a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry, take huge profits for themselves, and maintain barriers and prices that exclude the most important people that need to have access. The exact opposite of what we as an activist community have been fighting for all this time. This legalization is by the rich and for the rich, and the poor people be damned. As an activist community, it was those people that we fought for almost only. Although obviously we're fighting for freedom in general and for everybody. But what we really cared about was the sick people. Those amongst us that we knew needed cannabis to stay alive and to have any kind of quality of life. Those people needed access, and there were so many of them. And so many other people that would have taken advantage of the benefits of cannabis had it not been illegal and access restricted. But we did a pretty good job. Those amongst us that decided to open dispensaries, blatantly, storefronts, signage, paying taxes, being as mainstream and responsible a business as possible. We had over 150 of them at its peak, maybe close to 180. It's hard to know because they weren't all registered. None of them were licensed. All of them were criminals based on a federal law. But we were doing that, and those people did that, not to make tons of money. That was not usually the motivation of the dispensary owners. I know. I knew almost all of them. Some of them got into it because they could see there was a lot of money being made. Most of them got into it because they'd already been helping people. They knew how much it could help people. And they decided to leave their little operation in their basement suite and open a store. We cared about the sick. We cared about the people that needed it the most. When David and I opened the Herb School way back when in 2005, we had a sliding scale. People that couldn't afford it got it. People could afford only a little bit, only paid a little bit. We cared about the community. We cared about the people, and those were the ones we cared about the most. The government is doing the opposite. Not only is this by the rich and for the rich, this is against the poor. This is a government that's willing to use tax dollars to operate their protection racket and to weed out and destroy any access points for the poor and the sick. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. We felt that when they brought in legalization. We were afraid of that. Freddie Pritchard did a pretty good job of explaining that, the liberal website says some pretty nasty things about tightly regulated and saving the children. I thought, well, that's mostly just stuff they have to say, but the real rolling out of it won't be like that. Well, yes, it was. Yes, it was. An increase in the types of crimes that you could commit with cannabis. An increase in the enforcement and the enforcement dollars available. An increase in the penalties handed out to people that would dare defy the cartel. Ridiculous penalties. And the poor people be damned. So on this, the start of our 5th season, I am still railing against a very corrupt government that we have spent the last 4 years doing our best to expose. Maybe we can get it done in this season of the THC Show. We'll see. Maybe the mainstream media, which is in collaboration with the government these days, will get a hold of this story at some point as we move through the courts coming right up. We're going to have a judicial review of that final denial of our application that came after our last intent to deny and our last long letter to them. 419, got a minute. So we're going to have a judicial review of their refusal of our application, see what a judge says about whether or not there's justification for that or not. And then we're going to have a charter challenge coming right up after that in October and November. Well, in November, if we manage to pass the original pre-trial where they decide whether we have enough to go to trial on. I think we do. I think we have enough to take Health Canada into a charter challenge with them being criminally delinquent in their responsibility to provide a license or a special exemption of some sort to an operation like ours, because I can't think of any better example of why you would want to have an exemption or a special license. So we'll see what the courts have to say. But in the meantime, we're still on the same track, and my show is going to be miserable and all about nasty stuff and talking about government corruption and evildoers. Wish it wasn't. I'd like to get a lot more levity. But thankful for the 420 moment, eh? Thankful that 420 comes along and I get to stop jabbering about how nasty things are, and we can bring a little bit of levity to the show and to your lives, and just smoke some weed and laugh a little bit. So, Sir Wells.
Mr. Wells.
Well.
Sir Magnuson. No, sorry.
I became Mr.
Yes, sir, you threw me there.
And that's not easy to do.
Happy 420, buddy.
Happy 420.
Fifth year. We're starting the fifth year. Can you believe that?
No, I don't.
And it goes by so quickly.
I must have slept-walked through some of it.
I know.
It
Yeah,
seemed like 4 years to me.
I know.
Maybe
Congratulations.
maybe because we're still managing to have fun.
Yeah.
You know, time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly, and it's definitely fluent, so. Or flowing, whatever, fluid. Thank you, Cannabis.
We can make up new words anytime we want. That's all.
Well, somebody used gooder.
Gooder. Well, that's a gooder word than some of the other ones.
Oh yeah, I know. Eh?
All those vernacular Nazis out there having a fit right now.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Isn't that the fun of the English language? You know, the English language didn't start out like what it is now.
No.
Pretty much at all. You would
no.
200 years ago in England, you wouldn't understand pretty much a word anybody said there. And they wouldn't understand you either, probably.
No. I know some Irish too and stuff that has some thick accents
All
in New York and stuff. I've seen that movie New York where they were fighting. And have you ever seen that one?
No.
Yeah, where the two gangs are.
The gangs in New York? Is that
no, but this was in the early days when they were landing and coming on ships and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the whole title of that name, but they fought for their parts of the city and stuff like that. I think there was the Irish and there was the Scottish or something like that.
And I wonder if the Irish understood the Scottish and if the Scottish understood the British or any of that stuff.
Well, if we have anything to look at the monarchy, they don't really like them too much in Scotland, do they?
No, they won't.
No.
and I've heard some Scottish people talk in ways that it's very hard for me to figure out what they're saying.
The Gaelic. Is it Gaelic? No, is that Irish? I think that might be Irish.
I'm not a language expert.
Neither am I.
I'm a lay expert in the English language with idioms and axioms and other things. I don't know how much of an expert I am, but I'm a master of the English language for sure. I think so.
Okay.
You are too.
Okay.
Of course.
Look at that, Kato.
See, we used to broadcast from up there.
I know, eh? Yeah. It was really warm up there.
I was looking at, it was.
That's what it'd be like today.
Yeah, when we had the store here.
Yeah.
The space used to be the store.
Here, and over here.
And we broadcast over there a couple times.
Yeah.
But yeah, we sat up there in the window that's on the side wall, which nobody can see because we're just looking at it, but you can't see it at home there. But it's been quite the evolution over the last 4 years of things, for sure. We started at the studio. Back at Cannabis Culture. That was always great.
Mm-hmm.
And then, then because I guess we got the store. That's what happened.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Because we were doing the CSP for over 2 years before we started this THC show.
Yeah.
I'd already been doing it at Vandu at the last. We were twice a week at that point. And then Jeremiah convinced me to do a show.
Yeah.
And so
here we are.
And so we started in the studio, and then because City Council said you could get a space, and we found this space, and it was difficult to leave this space. You know, like on a Tuesday afternoon, for me to leave here and go to the studio to do a couple hours of the show.
Yeah.
Wasn't ideal. It didn't feel right, you know. So We started doing the show here, and then we've been doing it here ever since, other than a couple of remote.
The Snacks of Life is coming for pot fights. Ed's one of the special guests, and so is Mike Rita. He's going to be here too.
Oh, okay.
So they were thinking of maybe doing a couple of shows of the Snacks of Life in Vancouver, but they would need a place. So this is not solid yet, but I would mention that we would be able to maybe be able to set up here. He can have you on as a guest, and it's just a soundboard.
I mean, I would do that. I'm not sure it's the ideal place. Maybe Cannabis Culture would be the better place for them to do a show.
Love my Rita.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
so we've got some guests here today.
Because I got Edward, like, we've been talking about this, like he was mentioning it already. So he's going to be at pot fights, so is Mike. So he's just checking on what Mike's schedule was like. So we'll
bring our guests on in just a minute here.
I can let him know that. Yeah, okay. All right, I'll ask him then. All right.
That would be very cool.
That would be very cool.
So yeah, pot fights is coming up. I guess that's the next
September 1st.
thing.
Yeah.
Although there's a CSP barbecue in Surrey at Holland Park going on the 4th of September.
Yes,
so pot fights is first on the 1st. So that's great.
Yeah.
How did they get that mixed up?
I don't know.
It's old age.
It's cannabis. Cannabis does that. It's not the old age. Don't say that. Then you'll just
talk about the years going by. I don't know how many years ago it was now, but Cannabis Culture and Pot TV used to have the contest.
Yeah.
And that was one of my first introductions, actually, to Pot TV.
Okay.
I was working on the museum.
Yeah.
And building cabinets, the 8-foot-long cabinets. So I was building those in the basement at Cannabis Culture, where it wasn't at all, and it changed over the years, but it was a big lounge down there.
Okay.
Chesterfields and stuff set up. And I think it was Mondays that they would have the contest. Mm. And the contest was 4 of the luminaries, Mark Emery and Kirk Toussaint and Chris Bennett, and I forget who the 4th one was, but would sit there and test weed that was sent in.
Yeah.
So there was an ongoing contest. You could win something cool at the end of it. And so the show is that they would be there sitting in front of the camera. There would be the strain that they were going to test on the table there. They would open it up and they would divide it up amongst the 4 of them, and then each of them had a different way of smoking the cannabis.
Yeah. So bomb.
Chris was the vape guy at big volcano bang.
Yeah.
And so you would watch them, and they would comment on the taste, and they would comment on the smell, and what it looked like and shit like that. Mm-hmm. And then, but as they're tasting it, and you can just it was so clear and easy to see. These guys are getting high. They're now 10 minutes into smoking what they're smoking, and the conversation has gone like out there. And the level of animation. Yeah. Like if you watched it, probably without the sound. Yeah. You would see these guys all sitting there, fairly conservative. They're doing their thing, and then pretty soon they're all just hell yeah. It was a great show.
Yeah, one's a lawyer now, right?
Well,
Kirk
was always a lawyer.
Was he? Okay, all right.
He was also our campaign manager when we ran in the provincial elections.
Okay.
And had a candidate in every riding, which I thought was pretty good. Yeah. My riding was Surrey. Yeah. Which was very interesting. I enjoyed that a lot.
Look at Surrey
now. That was kind of my first introduction to Pot TV. Was that, and then. I sat in for lots of other different shows just as in the audience, watching different things go on. And then, Jeremiah had his show, and he'd have me on as a guest lots of times. I actually co-hosted for Jeremiah a couple times, and I hosted for him once when he couldn't be there, and I just did the show for him. Yeah. And that was all great. I really enjoyed all of that. But, here we are now. It's 4 years into this run. We don't have a cake.
No, we did 200 muffins.
Yeah, we had 2 celebrations in a row.
Thank you, Candy Bar. They were so good.
Yeah, and very much appreciated because most of those went out as donations with CSP.
Good. And people really liked them? Oh, yeah.
Everybody that had them liked them. Was it you that was telling me you took it in thirds?
I did it in thirds, yeah. Yeah, 250, 250, 250.
And 3 real good nights sleep.
3 real good nights sleep. Yeah, that's it.
So these things were 750 milligrams in the one cupcake. Yeah. So don't do that.
250 was the icing, and 500 was the cupcake. So I split that in half and just ate the icing one night.
So if you ate that and you weren't used to eating edibles, you would probably have a pretty nasty 2 days, maybe 2 nights. That's a fair amount there if you're not used to it at all. but it wouldn't kill you.
No.
It wouldn't kill you. In the end, you'd feel all right. Probably. I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for myself.
You might go, "Wow, what happened to me?"
I had 2 nights where I could not get out of bed for 2 days and 2 nights solid in Toronto. There, Toronto did it to me. Manitoba wanted to do it to me, but only Toronto succeeded.
I had a friend that made a chocolate cake that was edible, and that was the only other thing that was left in his fridge. So he ended up eating the whole cake that one night and spent the whole week on his couch.
It wasn't fun. I didn't like it.
No.
I didn't want it to be like that, but it didn't kill me, and it doesn't kill you. And that's why you don't need to have a doctor
give you a prescription,
following your progress and telling you how much to take or anything like that, because they don't know. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
And all they're going to be able to do is tell you, start low, go slow, and find the right dosage for yourself. And if you take too much, just stay calm. Don't get your stomach pumped. Ride it out. You'll be okay. I mean, that can be.
And some people say take some CBD.
Sure, drink orange juice.
Yeah.
Take CBD.
Yep. CBD will
put some nice music on that
stuff.
you like. Get your environment into a friendly space as best you can. Sleep it off.
But then also,
might see some colors.
On the other side, share what you experience with your doctor so that he can learn from you, like I have done, right? So if you've got a doctor who will support you and you know that, then share with him, because the more we educate them, the more they can educate other people. Right?
Great point.
Right? So
we have some guests on the show today.
Yeah. I'm going to move out of the way. So that,
Are you?
Yeah, well, I don't know if we can get all 3 of us in there.
Can we move the camera back a little bit?
We can maybe. Yeah, I can do that. Sure. All right.
Come on in here, you guys. Let's see if we can
Let's see if I can do this.
somehow.
Let's see if I can do this. All right.
So what we got is Carly Marley and Jeff Lundstrom. They'll
Hey, it
probably
worked.
neither of them really need an introduction at all, but I mean, Carly had her own Plot TV show for a long time, and Jeff has run the Skunk Funk, now no longer operating as Skunk Funk, but for so many years as the real, what do you call that, the head of the battle? You know, you were at the head of the battle there in Saskatchewan.
We were at the forefront.
Yeah, the forefront.
We did a lot of the like early years. There wasn't any reformed activism like we're from in Saskatchewan. So we did like the world like marijuana marches and things like that. So we did like the global marches, and those were always sanctioned. There used to be it's a little bit of Saskatchewan history for you guys for your Saskatchewan pop pops. So there used to be the Saskatchewan Marijuana Party, which was actually ran by a guy, Robert Godfrey. There's, and they were early, but they wanted to register as an actual political party. When we took over, eventually I sat as the president of the Saskatchewan Marijuana Party. And that was old timers. Ken Saylor, I got to give a shout out to Ken as well,
right?
Because those guys were like pioneers in the beginning.
I know of them, but
yeah. So Ken's still around. He's North Battleford, Saskatchewan. We still talk like online and stuff, but Ken's an amazing. Those guys all had a real drive. They worked with some university like legislators to help write policy basis for what they wanted for the Saskatchewan Marijuana Party. And of course, they did all the world global marches and the cannabis days. Although those were never really like crazy over, like they were never crazy overpopulated. They'd always kind of attract people who wanted something for free, because we were always giving away free stuff, free weed, free stuff. Like once I got involved and the shop got involved, we were always giving away free stuff. So I got one going. So I think
you guys should share that.
I think Jeff and I are sharing at this point.
Yeah, there's chatter in here, of course.
Well,
so
it's
then of
really
course
tough to get people out to get involved in protests against what is a criminal law. That are people that are breaking that law, and they didn't want to put their face out.
Well, the police always showed up.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter what event we had outdoors.
Yeah.
So then of course fast forward to of course the Saskatchewan Marijuana Party always handled that sort of stuff, and then of course as the party dispersed, the head shop game started, and that's where I got my foot in. Until in 2008 I opened my shop, and then in 2009 I started traveling to different cannabis events around the world. more specifically Canada based in the beginning because it was, I suppose world events eventually.
Sure.
But I'd travel to Toronto and treating yourself. And I'd just be like, well, people just here smoking weed.
Those were pretty good.
It was
eh?
like, oh yeah, they were great.
Treating
Marco
yourself, that's pretty
Renda. Yeah, there's
mainstream,
a go throwback. At the Toronto Metro Convention Center, which is downtown.
That was amazing.
Like, unbelievable that these
get
things.
this again.
So I would go to that. I would go to those events. In 2009, Dana Larson had the Amsterdam Ganja Games and Marijuana Bowl. That's actually where we met.
Right.
And I met Guppy, and that's a few other people.
Yeah.
So it was an eye opener. So I started going to these things and realizing, these things are happening across Canada, and the police don't ever show up there.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, well, how the fuck can this happen? Like, Canada's all one country. Yeah, we got different provinces, but our federal laws are across the board. So I'm like, well, if they're pulling it off fucking there, we can pull it off here. Saskatoon. I remember when we first started kicking around in 2009, we first started kicking around the idea of a cannabis cup. And I'm going, I want to have a cup. And Jeremiah, Pot TV, and he was like, well, I'll help you promote it. He's like, whatever you got, brother, let's do this. Let's get a cup happening. So I remember when we first started planning for the Prairie Cup, people saying, like, this is never going to happen. Like, where you are, this isn't going to happen. The cops are going to kick the fucking door down. You're all going to go to fucking jail.
They were right next door.
One year they had a fucking wedding right next door in a bar. So yeah, it turned out that was not the case. In the first year of the Prairie Cup, people just showed up, grabbed their shit, ticket holders, and left. Yeah. Like, they just piece of fuck, I'm going to smoke this at home. Came back the last day and dropped off their judge's shit. So it was like this crazy, and I mean, we paid for out of pocket like 2, 3, year 4, almost year 5. We started breaking even, and then year 6, 7, 8, we really had gained a following. And of course, by then, illegal market, like dispensaries were blowing up, and online sales were killing it, and black market was sort of this gray area where they weren't really enforcing it. So it was like the fucking Wild West of weed for a while, man. Yeah. And everybody had a goddamn med license. We were all growing fucking pot like crazy, and oh shit,
and we so many branded companies
and those assholes is, it's fucking ignorant as they are. You got to give them their ability to problem solve, because that's what legalization was. Their way of problem solving what exactly I'm talking about was going on.
They sat around and said, how can we give them what they're going to win,
right,
and not give them what they want?
And not give them what they want. Yeah. And they came up with Bill Blair and the Cannabis Act, which is the greasiest shit I ever fucking heard.
They sat around and asked, when they did have consultations with the activists, everything the activists said that should happen, they went away and said, well, okay, we can't give them any of that.
But when you let bureaucrats write your policies, and you have the vast majority of the people that are consistently saying we're okay with it, like, I've talked to many
people making money.
Roll to the rec market and are just simply okay with the shitty weed they purchase there. For me and my medicinal needs, that don't fly. Yeah. So you can fuck off. I got a 30 gram a day license. You can't hold a torch for it. I can grow it at home for a fraction of what you could purchase it in a fucking rec market. Never mind if you had to buy 30 gram a day times a month's supply. What would that look like? I did the math once. It was like fucking $3,000 a month, because I gotta buy top shelf. So I'm not spending less than $15 a gram, probably $20 a gram if you want the good shit.
Weed was always expensive for everybody except people like in the real circles like us.
Yeah. So, like as we talked about the washout of medicinal marijuana patients. Access. How the fuck are we still arguing access in 2000? Since the induction of the program.
People.
Yeah, for people who can't access it, or disabled, or required it. I can't take opiates anymore. I take opiates and it costs liver and kidney failure. So it costs me the potential of dying versus taking a medicine that I can use every day, still function, that's not going to kill me. But you can't make it so I can't afford it.
Well,
it's insane.
You get your oats paid for by Medicare,
$2 a fucking prescription.
Yeah. And so it's insanity. And so
it's a broken system. And that's what happens when you monetize.
Prior to legalization, they estimated for BC $7 to $9 billion a year industry. Underground.
Right.
$7 to $9 billion.
You look at
that's a lot of fucking money.
You read Bud Inc., dude, the fucking facts in there. They used to model hydro and lumber for BC's imports.
Yeah.
To other fucking, just to other provinces.
And then you look at the other end of all the money that the government spent trying to eradicate that industry.
Oh, it's massive.
Massive.
Those
no
all
accountability on it.
Those
either.
are all a lot of tax dollars too.
All tax dollars.
Right, drug enforcement money, and they get double now.
And that money,
legalization.
at least the money generated by the sale of weed was going primarily to people who were growing weed, selling weed, in some form or another. That money that they're spending, that massive amount to counter what's going on here, is all going into the pockets of these prohibitionist enforcement people, and it's tons of money. Companies, sprung up. It's a whole big industry all by itself. Prohibition. It started with alcohol, and we moved on to cannabis.
Alcohol is a great example of how bad it went in the beginning. How long was it after alcohol was legalized again that they allowed even a micro beer or any kind of craft type of booze into the marketplace? And we all know the damage that alcohol can do over an existence of lifetime. So I mean, it's even worse.
Or one night, depending.
Even worse if you prohibit it.
Yeah,
right. There's the violence that came from that. So we all know the mistake of making it illegal.
And the bad alcohol that came from it.
Right. So cannabis never had any of that illegal violence and connotation. Like nobody was robbing you for a bag of fucking grass, for the most part.
Well, the big boys that were moving large amounts, here in Mexico, the United States, there's a lot of violence going on in the cannabis trade. But it's not just cannabis for those guys. It's pretty much all drugs involved.
Right. Yeah. They'll do it with avocados, dog. Right? Yeah. There's no limit to once your greed is past. Yeah. There's no limit to what you'll do.
And all of that is just prohibition.
Right. We're more compassionate people. And I think you have that if you especially look inside the medical community for cannabis. You have that compassion there. You still do. Yeah. I mean, California, all throughout the states, and Colorado, it's littered with people just like us that are compassionate enough.
Even those dispensary owners that set up their dispensaries because they wanted to cash in, didn't take too long, and they were friends with many of their clients who had serious needs that they were helping these people with, and it became much more than just a business for them. It became personal as well because of the clients that they became friendly with.
You can't completely hate on the rec market because it has come to a full term at this point. So you can't.
I don't know what a full term means.
Full term is where in the beginning you couldn't find anything even worth smoking. I wouldn't have bought it for you. Now you can actually go in, and if you're smart enough and knowledgeable enough,
and have enough money,
and have enough money in some cases, you can purchase something that's decent.
Yeah.
But even like some of the stuff, and that took time.
I've heard.
But it's not anywhere. It's not anywhere near there yet.
So it's crazy. Yeah. No.
So it's not full term. Yeah, it's got a long
way. But what I would consider full term to what they started at. Like, you got to be kidding me.
Well, it's come a ways. It's come a ways, and it has to. It could have got worse.
Just from the history, reasonable access will, at least enforcement is pretty low. Reasonable access will always be a struggle for anybody and everybody. If you're stuck,
really hope not.
You know what I mean? Unless it's grown,
because it's
look
so
at Manitoba, you see how fucking grow it there.
I know.
And Quebec, still can't grow it there.
I know.
And Quebec, we know
we're nowhere near there yet.
We know the direct correlation between
Ted Smith
Quebec
had a $6.5 million fine for running a medical dispensary for 26 years with no complaints and a whole bunch of people that he helped.
Where are you going to get $6 million? Because Ted don't have $6 million. No. So what are you going to do? Get blood from a stone? Like that's extortion.
They don't care that Ted can't pay. What they care is that they stamp him out. And they let that be an example to anybody else that would dare to open a dispensary against a cartel.
Like I said, you'll see all those guys.
That's like hanging people in the streets.
Like I said, and you'll see all those guys eventually have no choice but to navigate over to the other system because they have no choice left. Right? And that's how
the systems have to merge.
He's not the first person I see. Oh, I agree, but they ain't going to listen to that. Maybe they'll listen after you win your challenge.
Exactly.
Because I'm excited
we're
about
not there yet. We're a long ways from there yet. And they can't win now. This can't be the end. This can't be full term.
And we better start fundraising.
This needs to be the term that we're at right now. And it might be better than where we started. But these are very sophisticated people we're dealing with, right?
For sure.
And they know that this is a negotiation. This is an ongoing negotiation. And they started high. They started really fucking high. And now they're coming down, and they want to look like good guys. They want to look like good guys because they're going to allow craft into the marketplace, but they're going to charge $22 a gram for it because that's the good stuff.
Some of it 30, dude.
Some of it 30.
Depends on what province.
I know. Right? So it's all about the dollar. It's nothing about access to the people that need it. In fact, it's the opposite. They need to have They need to fuck off. They need to really just seriously fuck off. There's no other commodity that's regulated like this going on at all. This is ridiculous.
There are some things changing province-based, too. So they took the coverings
They're
off the windows.
changing all the way.
Like
They are
that.
going to have to.
I heard there's some places you can actually like smell the bud and look the bud like they're just taking.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, eh?
So there's some stuff that's changing.
Maybe.
Here they take away the paints of the windows.
That's what I said. All the
Wow.
windows
Okay.
have to be blacked out.
The thing is though, with the to see and smell the bud, I've seen that setup before, and it's a heck of a lot different than it was when you were like a dispensary and you'd walk up and they'd be like,
Here's the
smell
jar,
the
yeah.
jar.
Or you go into any one of these Chinese markets in Chinatown here that sell all these different plant products, and they're all there in the bins, and you can smell them and look at them at home.
Exactly like that.
Yeah. No, there's
No.
like one bud that I don't know how they get it or whatever, but you can tell when a bud has been sitting
Too
around
long?
for a while. Though
Yeah,
I will
sure.
say it's not like you're getting the buds from a fresh jar.
No,
You're at a
that's right.
dispensary.
All of those have been sitting
They've
around
also
for
been
about a
sitting
year.
around for a while too.
So there's another evil side to all this legalization, and that is, maybe they're going to let you smell it and look at it, but where can you sit and smoke it with your friends?
Yeah.
How is it going with the Cannabis Culture Vapor Lounge? Like, you guys are in all kinds of trouble, aren't you?
Yeah, they're definitely creating problems for us.
Well, you're under threat, right? Your landlord's under threat.
Yes, I don't know how much I was supposed to say on
Well,
air.
you only say what you think you should say.
Yeah.
But for sure, you're being
they're
harassed and
putting
hassled and
pressure on us.
not licensed, not allowed.
And we've tried. We've jumped
you
through all
have.
of the hoops that they've asked us to jump through, even though there's been dispensaries set up near us. We've tried to be able to get a dispensary license or do whatever we can, and the city just has issue with us. Probably because we broke the rules before they made rules allowing us, and because we've done things like help out with 420 and openly been protesting, and they don't really love when people do that. I don't know. But we're still there. We're still protesting. We're still
in the
doing
wrong
the
country,
civil
man. We get the
disobedience.
protest.
Like you said, they're not kicking your door down either.
Yeah.
So any
So-
any noticeable difference from the new mayor?
He sucks, I guess.
Well, he made Cannabis Day fun.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Not.
It's all brutal. He's brutal. The guy before him is brutal. They're all brutal. I don't like any of them.
Wow.
We're
yeah.
trying to
Yeah,
go
that
around and talk.
company-
Kennedy Stewart wasn't
politician.
great, but
Kennedy Stewart was not.
this is another
great.
level of evil going on
This
there
is
as well.
not.
Who's the new mayor?
Ken Sim.
Okay.
And Ken Sim has undone, decades worth of activism here in Vancouver.
Conservative,
Yeah,
liberal,
like-
where's he
No,
stand?
it's a new party.
Independent?
Yeah, something. I don't know what coalition maybe. I don't know.
Chinese.
Well, yeah. No, but what's the name of the party that won?
The Chinese.
No.
You don't think so?
In Vancouver.
You don't think so? Yeah, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going to say that on this show.
I just did. They're going to do. They're going to ban me now because I'm
Yeah.
suggesting that maybe there's been some foreign influence in our political system here in Canada. Well,
Could be.
I'll tell you, there certainly has been.
Oh, it's a
And-
hush.
We all.
No, you can't say that. That's just what all the evidence points.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just what they're investigating with our money in Ottawa, right
I mean,
now.
old Justin did say he had no problem with their government system, and he really enjoyed the model.
Oh,
Wow.
He would like to see Canada be
Wow.
like it.
Oh, the communists?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He said he
No.
really liked how it worked, their social system worked. And
Yeah.
Well, they get
he
stuff
really
made
salutes
cheap,
them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Slave labor, you know.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
and then the people that obey and get that social record where it should be, they get to come out in public and be somebody.
Yeah.
But how many millions or otherwise people that don't?
Us cannabis people would be minus numbers.
They don't have the same problems of the homelessness and poverty in the streets that we do here.
Are you packing some of my bubble
But
guts?
it's just, yeah, I am.
I'm excited.
This is
Got me all excited.
you made this stuff.
I did. I grew the cannabis as well.
Nice.
Yes,
I
it's
grew
very
the
nice.
Cannabis and then I got this cold press technique I've been working on. I'm pretty happy with the result of how it's turned out.
I'm already higher than I normally am on a show.
He got me super ripped, and I haven't been on a show in forever, so.
It was my
Pot
fault.
TV.
I have a tendency to get people stoned where I go.
This is a pot TV show, after all.
I love it.
I know Greg Williams made a comment earlier on into the first episode. Does he ever smoke weed on that show? Something like that. I miss my brother Greg a lot.
Fuck me too, buddy. We smoked some weed that came from his place. So they got a couple jars. We were at CC smoking earlier.
Oh, nice.
And fucking Acid was like, you want to try some of Greg's weed? And I'm like, you have some? I was like, hell yeah, I want to smoke some of that. So he brought 2 jars down. One was this green jar and had some bud in it that still kind of smelled like okay. And then there was this red jar that had some weed in it that did not only look but didn't smell okay either. It looked like it was sitting in the sun a little too long.
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh.
We smoked the one in Greg's memory today.
Nice.
Right in the back of the shop where his seed desk used to be, and where I spent many a time and many conversations about cannabis, enjoying my friend's company. And so I miss him too, buddy.
Oh, man.
Every time I come here, it's not the same, not seeing
And he
him.
had so many incarnations of himself, right? Like, he was the guy at the seed desk for a long time. He was the guy that traveled the world and smoked weed of all sorts everywhere, and he was marijuana man because of that.
Right.
And then he was the Plot TV. He was the manager of Plot TV for a long time.
Right.
And then he had his own. Well, he started his own show, I guess, when he was doing that as well. He was like the longest running Plot TV show ever.
Bob High gave me a book when I was here last for Cannabis Day, and then he wrote stories in hockey memorabilia.
Exactly.
And stuff,
Yeah.
A bunch of cool shit. Like the guy's, he's an OG.
He was a
He
real.
used to be a bartender back in a bar in Alberta.
I think he was like the softest spoken superhero that I ever met. You know,
He's one of the
like a quiet, humble guy.
greatest people I ever
It
met.
was amazing.
Mild mannered.
Mild mannered.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Smoked a lot of weed with him.
He smoked a lot of weed.
Yeah.
Talked a lot of weed.
I remember we were doing it was a global marijuana march, and we marched down to the U.S. Embassy, and we had this little stand that people would stand on to speak, and Greg was going to get up and stand, and it was really wobbly. So I'm down below, hanging on to one of the legs to make sure the thing doesn't fall over when he's up there. But I'm down there looking up at him, and he's giving this speech about, I've smoked more marijuana, and when I was growing up, and they told me, the marijuana makes you stupid, and marijuana is going to destroy your brain, and blah, 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 blah. He says, well, I'm standing here in front of you right now after having smoked way more marijuana than they ever said a person should smoke without getting brain damage,
I'm fine.
And I'm just fine.
His philosophy towards the things that I feel like you said, if weed is legal, then we should have hockey teams. We should have fucking Daytona 500 cars.
Exactly.
We should,
Lounges.
We should have lounges, bars. We should have billboards where we advertise, commercials where we advertise, just like beer, just like alcohol. All those guys can fuck. But like I said, it went back to that regulatory control. Like, how come I can't?
Well, the continued demonization, which continues the stigmatization, which continues to harm people, the continued wasting of our fucking tax dollars because they can demonize it like that.
The very people that call me a criminal my whole life, call me a criminal, breaking the law, you're a criminal. Even charged me in some shit for it, told me my whole life, then made it legal, and then still call me a fucking criminal. Like, that's insane, man. That's some gaslighting shit.
Yeah.
Like, my own government, man. It's like, oh, fuck, I love you. Thanks for coming on. And then they wonder why I get out and protest and I'm pissed.
I know.
But they don't listen to a word you fucking say.
It's been an amazing conspiracy of silence and criminal hypocrisy going on for all
Like,
this
on
time.
the end of the day when we were setting up, there was a guy shooting up with like fucking 25 cops just watching him when we got over to the other side.
Do you know what happened on
It's
BC
insane,
Bud Day?
man.
On BC Bud Day, where the cops, they showed up, 2 of them eventually that day. They weren't expecting us on Saturday. They were expecting us on Monday. In fact, they had large numbers of VPD at Thornton Park on Monday, BC Day, expecting there to be a BC Bud Day, but we had already had it on Saturday.
Yeah.
So there was cops there. They showed up at some point in the afternoon, 2 cruisers. 3 of them got out, and they were the heavy guys with the sunglasses and the stern looks, and they stood over by the SkyTrain, but they didn't come in, they didn't look in the booths, and they eventually turned and walked away. And then there was 3 guys come walking through. They were before sitting on a bench. They weren't part of our group at all. They were part of the regulars at Thornton Park, which are the hard drug users. They walk through, they get just through our thing and just about the SkyTrain station, and the one guy collapses. And Rosie yells, "Man down," and she runs to him. and I run to my car. I wasn't running very good. It was towards the end of, these rallies are kicking the shit out of me, man. I don't know how many more times I can stand up like that all day long. But anyway, I did my best. I got to the car, I got my Narcan kit, and I got back to where they were. He'd already had a nasal application and a shot from another Narcan kit. And Rosie was relentless. She wouldn't let it go. This man was blue, and she kept slapping him and giving him mouth to mouth, and somebody else was doing compressions on his chest, and she was yelling at him, "Don't you dare die, don't you dare die, look at me, look at me." Very, very powerful to watch. They eventually eventually gave him, including the nasal application, 4 applications of Narcan.
Jesus.
And he came to, and his color came back, and he was getting himself sitting up there and what have you, and reorienting himself, and the firemen were on their way coming through the park. And he was alerted to that, and right away he wants to leave, and I'm like, buddy, don't go. And I'm not going to restrain him.
Right.
But I did my best verbally to convince him not to go, but he got up on his feet and he staggered, away.
He just died.
And I said, buddy, you need to talk to them. They're not going to force you to go to the hospital or nothing. You need to talk to them. He says, no, I don't. I said, you don't know whether you need to talk to them or not. We know you need to talk to them. You weren't here. You need to go talk to them. Yeah. So but no, he refused and walked away eventually. Not eventually, but quick enough that they couldn't get to him. He did come back about an hour later, and told one of our people to tell me that thank you very much for everybody that helped him, and that.
Do you know the overdose rate currently? Like where you guys are?
Well, it's just about 7 a day now.
7 a day.
Yeah,
within the province.
It's crazy.
And,
within this province.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I couldn't imagine what it is across the board.
Depends, and it all depends for the most part on what area you're in. Although it goes across most demographics, right? Because the people that get addicted to these opiates come from all the different walks of life. It doesn't matter who you are. You have a car accident, you have some injury, you have something that gets you to your doctor putting you on opioids. And if that happened during that time when they were freely giving them easy, that was the big cure for everything. No problem, no problem. And then all of a sudden there's the OxyContin thing with Purdue Pharma, and they all have to clamp down now on all these people, and they're all monitored for how much they're doing. So they cut people off that shouldn't have been cut off that way at that time. And the people are now embarrassed with what they're doing. They're ashamed because now they're stealing it from their family's medicine cabinets or wherever they can get it, or their friends are getting it, or whatever. And now that runs out, or they don't have that. They end up down here. So we see them here coming from all the different walks of life and all different types of dress, from suits to whatever. The car will pull up, a nice fucking BMW will pull up, a guy in a suit will get out, he'll walk down the alley there, they'll do a little deal at the telephone pole, and away he goes to wherever. And so these people are secret users. Nobody knows, right? Like their family doesn't know. They officially they've stopped doing that shit or whatever, right? Rehab is a journey of many steps forwards and backwards for the most part to get out of that stuff. And so
it's a hard cycle when there isn't options. Like, I mean, there's
options
one thing
here.
about me coming out to Vancouver and seeing it firsthand is to know 100% that there isn't options for these people.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally.
Well, their options are they can keep getting more.
Die in the street.
They can keep getting more of these drugs,
right?
Because these drugs don't cease to be available.
But like the housing is a problem
for sure. All of it.
Food's a problem.
Poverty. It's all government policies,
mental health
basically.
Issues, right?
The way we treat our sick and our poor here.
For sure. Your animals are treated better.
You don't want to be poor.
Your dogs and your cats
they've
are better
criminalized being poor here and monetized it. They've weaponized it, basically.
For sure.
So that they make money on all of these things. It's the political campaigns they run on.
Until you walk down East Hastings that you really see that. Or until you go into
Surrey.
They
need a mess.
Or you go into Surrey. We did the Cannabis Substitution
Or you
Project
live and work down there.
Right.
And
You just really get a taste of how bad they fucked up.
And when you talk to the people,
when these
find
people
out.
are living in $500,000 homes, that's what the government go home to. Get these beautiful houses where they sit and they drink their whiskey and don't got to worry about it.
They don't care about these people.
It's insane. Oh, that's clear.
Unless it hits home,
100% evident.
Unless it hits home for them personally in some way with their families or friends, they don't care. It's all about money, and they don't know and they don't care, and they all justify it. They all decide that these are just the scum of society. These are bad people, and they deserve what they're getting, and that's just karma, and it's bullshit. Because, like I say, these people come from every walk of life. Many of those people that are right now coming from nice suburbs in their nice cars to get what they're getting down here, in 3 years, they're going to be down here, hunched over, poor, sleeping on the fucking streets because their life is spiraling down as we speak. It's going on all the time. And they've monetized it. They campaign on it. They say, we're going to clean up this mess. We're working on cleaning up this mess. You listen to what they say. They're spending millions of dollars on this problem. The federal government, the provincial government, you call and ask them about it, they'll tell you they're spending millions of dollars already on this problem.
How? Then you would
because they got friends that are providing who knows what in the way of safe supply or clean needles or to maintain.
You fucking see that. Like I said, I've been traveling out here since '06, and I haven't seen. You guys, if anything, it's gotten worse.
Oh, it's gotten
right compared to what it was.
compared
I mean,
to
I can only talk from 2006 till now. I can only imagine.
Well, the pandemic didn't help at all.
No, the pandemic
for sure didn't help anybody.
Escalate to a different.
So many more
level.
homeless people, for one thing.
Yeah.
You know, so many people are so close to losing their housing.
Yeah.
And then the tent thing. You know, the tent started springing up and staying. And,
Yeah.
and being tolerated
Yeah.
until it got into a problem. They always wait until it's a big problem, and then they're gonna fix it. And so now there's a lot less tents. There's still a bunch of people congregating. There's still a few tents here and there. There's some that are dug in, but for the most part, for anybody driving through that didn't understand, they'd think, "Hey, Mayor Sims doing a good job getting rid of all those tents." But the actual process of doing that was absolute human brutality.
Go around the corner.
And, these poor people who've been victimized and traumatized all their life already, and much of it by the medical and healthcare system and the justice system. Now they're being,
It's the government program
on
system.
comes the
Let's
big
just call
dump
it
truck.
the government program system. Because that's literally what it is. The government runs all the things you just mentioned.
yeah, for sure.
Right? Including the subsidy and the housing
And the dump trucks.
And the garbage trucks.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
And
They've become greedy mobsters.
They are.
That's
They've
what
got
they
their
are.
these are
They're
henchmen.
extortionists.
They've got the four biggest city workers you can find.
That was the one thing
with
I said on
attitude.
Cannabis Day. I hate that we won't no longer find you criminally responsible. We'll find you financially responsible for your behavior. So I don't like what you're doing. So you're now going to have to give me your fucking money. Because that's what he was saying.
Which
They
is
are-
only a problem.
Did you
if
see that
don't
fine
have
list? Did
money.
you see that fine
No.
list that they handed out on Cannabis Day?
No, I saw.
There's
I
a
read
list.
the preamble. to it.
No, just they gave us two letters.
Yeah.
They gave us a
Okay.
warning, then they gave us a list of the fines, bro.
Potential fine.
Like this is, and a lot of them broke down. They had about 50. Did you see on the list?
Yeah.
And about 35 of those were referring to minors.
Right.
And I remember we had some kids hanging around our booth. We were smoking a fatty. We asked them. I was like, "Well, how old are you guys?" They're like, "We're 16." I was like, "Well, you're probably in the wrong spot then." The cops are all over this. Like, I heard is there some sort of act in the Cannabis Act that deals with teenagers and their punishment? Because they literally said it was a fine to sell to a minor.
I remember one of the
Or
fines.
just a
was
fine.
for
Just
being-
a fine, but then there's
But
the
I mean,
criminal side of
crazy.
it as well.
But that's what I'm saying. What is the criminal side?
So I'm not sure
So
how
you
that all
actually
works.
take a
There,
charge?
there was one that said for being high in public.
Yeah,
too.
no, overconsumption.
Overconsumption.
On
in public
overconsumption, there was a
yeah.
fine for
Yeah, I think it was
overconsumption.
$235.
So
Well, I said, who the fuck are you?
How much was it?
I think it was
Hey, I'll pull him up.
$235
I'll pull him up. I have him,
$250.
dude.
He's got the
I'll
picture
fucking
problem.
pull it up
Yeah.
for
The
you.
city of Vancouver, I saw online that they hired a bunch of young kids to do that program where they go and see if they'll get sold to.
Well,
go see all
kind of like
the
they would do with like
shops,
tobacco.
dispensaries.
No,
Yeah.
this came up.
Yeah, and like with alcohol,
This came up.
they
This
go
came
and
up
see
in
if they get
consultations.
tested. Yeah.
This came up in consultations with the legal industry about what more they could do to enforce, the rules.
Okay, let me
And
fucking
that's
read
a
you
program
something.
that has been run before. It is.
Okay, let me
Yeah.
do my
it's an
best to
ongoing
read
thing.
these off to you,
Yeah.
dude, okay? And they have a section too. So section 15, unlawful sale of cannabis was a $575 fine. Section 17, unlawful supply of cannabis was also a $575 fine. Section 52(1)A, possession of more than 30 grams of dried cannabis in a public place, $230. Well, how does that apply to medical patients who are allowed to have up to 150 grams with them at any time? Fucking losers. Section 52(1)B, possession of more than the equivalent of 30 grams of dried cannabis in a public place, also another
Which
$230.
is some calculation to do with the concentrates that you might have.
Section 69A(1),
How much is
selling cannabis or cannabis accessories to a minor, $575. Section 69(2), supply of cannabis or cannabis accessories to minors, $575. And now all the rest of these have to do with minors pretty much. Minors possessing cannabis, $230. Minors consuming cannabis, $230. Minors producing cannabis, 230.
Wow.
Minors supplying cannabis, 230. Minors selling cannabis, 230, which is the same fucking thing as supplying and selling.
Wow.
Minors purchasing, so even if you're a minor and you purchase, it's a $230 fine. Minor attempting to purchase cannabis, so if you're just attempting, it's also a $230 fine.
They're going to put me in jail for sure.
Minor possessing cannabis accessories is also a $230. Minor making cannabis accessories, supplying cannabis accessories, selling cannabis accessories, purchasing cannabis accessories, attempting to purchase cannabis accessories. So even just attempting to purchase
a bong or a
hold
pipe.
on, operating
that's
vehicle.
insane.
Hold on, a minor operating a vehicle with cannabis in the contrary to the act is also $230, and a minor presenting false identification is $230, and intoxication from cannabis in a public place $115. So what the fuck is that, man? And most of those, like, how many minors do they think are at these events? And I mean, I feel sorry for you if you're 16 and you're trying to smoke weed
what's
like
a
me.
minor?
No kidding. I was
So-
just gonna say, can you
so
imagine
what's a
being in
minor?
high school and being
Anybody
scared
under the
to
age of
underage
legal 18, so whatever it is in your province to consume. So 19 would be BC,
So whatever happened
Alberta
to
would be
the
18,
whatever happened to
Saskatchewan
the
19.
Senate report? Whatever happened to the Senate report?
From 2004?
Yeah.
Because it was 2004.
Where 16 had to be the age of access for real serious reasons to do with these young people being harmed.
For sure.
But in the prohibition
For
marketplace.
sure, for sure. All that, dude. But I mean, is that a list of fines or what?
Yeah.
I guess I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be. I'm fading away. Fading away.
Yeah.
It's crazy list.
Got to remember, it's not just the four of us chatting. This
Yeah.
is we got the people out there.
Yeah.
And I said off the top of the show that there's increased penalties, increased crimes to do with cannabis. So these fines that you're talking about, they're based on the Cannabis Act, I would imagine.
Yes.
So
I
in the
assume
Cannabis
so.
Act, there's
have
also
to be.
there's also jail time that goes along with some of those offenses. Like providing to a minor, I think it's like 14 years you could go to jail. for that.
Right.
So all they've
So
done is,
what is it? So
is
what
this
is the
the city?
significance of the $230 fine if you're going to jail for 14
this might be
years?
just the city or the province with the CSU imposing their own regulations on, and their own enforcement, because that's always the case as well. You talked about how these are federal laws and they should be applied evenly across all of Canada with Canadians, but they're absolutely 100% not. There's a difference in interpretation and enforcement priorities within every province and within every municipality as well.
Everything's
and,
different.
and alongside of prohibition and the fines that you would pay in a criminal court for having possession of cannabis, you could be fined by bylaw in many communities in British Columbia and other parts of Canada, and given a fine, based on that. And I think this is what this is they've decided to say, well, here in British Columbia, at this point, here's the fines that we're going to give you. We'll let the cops deal with the other side of it. But
They do realize that fining people, because a fine is compulsory. So you can't pay it, but otherwise you got to go. So most people just fucking comply. Most people just pay their
Yeah,
pay
the
their
system
parking
makes you
ticket, they pay their speeding ticket. They're gonna pay their cannabis fine too. Like, it's
plus,
insane.
they've got ways of
But
leveraging it.
But I mean, if you were only going to give me a $230 fine to sell it to a minor instead of putting me in jail for 15 years, fuck, I'll sell weed all day to a 16-year-old. I'll take the fine right
Yeah,
now.
well,
I mean, 230 is
we'll-
not
we'll
bad.
see what
Those
happens
guys
here.
can't go buy weed anywhere.
I know. It's really
Poor
sad.
bastards.
I actually had to deal with it yesterday. It's not very often that we get young people here
Yeah.
at the RV, and because of what you mentioned, we are also aware of that here. That there is this strategy they have of sending
just like tobacco.
young-looking people in
Professional
to buy.
snitches.
Yeah, so we had this.
They never do stitches.
I was alerted that there was a girl at the window that looked pretty young, and so I went and talked to her, and I asked her how old she was, and she was 16, and I said, "You're 16 for sure?" She goes, "Yes, I'm 16." She says, "I came here when I was 15, and you told me you wouldn't sell to us, or your crew said you wouldn't sell to me until I was 16, and now I'm 16, so I'm here." I said, "All right." And she was with another young fellow who looked pretty young as well, and "How old are you?" And he was the same, and I said, "Because the Canadian Senate said that access should be at 16 years of age, and that was for a good reason, because if I'm not going to allow you access here, then you might end up around the corner in the lane there with some guy that's not going to teach you well, or you might end up in some guy's basement suite who's going to who knows what, right?" I said, "It's not safe for you to be going at this point, because what the Senate decided was that at 16 years of age, if you've decided you're going to go buy some weed, you're going to go buy some weed. It doesn't matter what your parents say anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And so those young people, especially those young people that are going to go against what their parents are saying at that point in their life, they need to have a safe place to be able to access. And by making sure there is none, they're making sure that there are unsafe places. And that's what the biggest problem with prohibition is, other than the huge expenditure, is the young people that have been at risk and harmed seriously because of these policies of prohibition.
When they used to try to enforce tobacco regulations in my shop, I argued with the tobacco lady that, first of all my papers were for weed. But I said, are you telling me that somebody who gets cancer under the age of 18, that's illegal to consume cannabis for medical purposes, can't go buy papers because there's regulatory control about tobacco-related? I said, until they start writing laws around this stuff being regulated, we're not selling to minors. And even if you are, I'm selling you papers intended for weed, not for tobacco. I don't endorse anybody smoking tobacco. I don't think it's good for you. I don't think it's good for your health, and I don't endorse it. That's
It's a
just
big
me.
scam.
It's your own choice as an adult. Do what
Sure.
you wish. But I recommend you smoke weed.
Yeah, lucky for you. Lucky for you that it's your own choice to smoke tobacco if you
That's
want.
correct.
You know, this carcinogenic poison
Alcohol.
that is documented that it kills millions, like 4, 5, 6 million people every 12 months on this planet.
Right.
Not to mention the OCPD, which is the number one cause of that is smoking. The number one reason for people getting admitted to hospital, the longest amount of time people stay there is because of these issues.
You got a problem with
And you can go buy that anywhere. You know, it's regulated. Sure, they put all sorts of nasty warnings. They're writing in warnings right on the cigarettes now.
Yeah, I heard that.
You know, in English and in French, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then you get to smoke it.
But you can still,
We're just smoke the writing.
you can still go and buy
Here's
that
a
shit.
little ink to go with your fucking.
That's a little ink with cyanide and
yeah.
carcin,
Whatever
Right,
else,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
And with Trudeau said we're doing it to protect the children. They're not really protecting the children. If their children can't buy it at being at 16 and have to go into a dark alley or
That's
someone
exactly
else's place,
100%.
right? It's
Yeah.
not really protecting anybody.
They're
is
not
it?
protecting those
It's
kids.
enforcing.
Listen, I have a 15-year-old, and on her own, she started smoking cannabis at grade 9. And unfortunately, she has a pot guru as a father, and she still smoked off a can for her first experience because that's all her friends had. And I was like, you gotta be fucking. I said, you gotta be kidding. I said, I own a pipe store. I said, you could have just asked me for one. So there goes to show you, my 15-year-old did that all on her own. I had nothing to do with her.
She didn't need it.
Right, she didn't
It's a
need
healing
it.
event.
And I'm a fucking weed.
My son, too.
I'm the biggest weedhead you ever met.
My
I
son
figured,
at 16 came to me and said, "Dad, I've been smoking weed a little bit on the downside, and can I smoke
it
a joint
almost
with you?"
kind of broke my heart a little.
Right?
Right?
I should have been the first one.
Well, or at least giving you the pipe so you weren't smoking on some poison ass fucking aluminum can for your first time.
My
So
kids-
it just goes to show you. It just goes to show you that the teenagers are still wanting to consume, that are being inundated, and they're having these experiences regardless of the loss. So I just don't understand. We used to protest unjust laws and openly break these laws, and that has changed. Cannabis Day,
And
that has
monopolies
changed.
used to be against the law, not run by government. Protection rackets were things that gangs and gangsters did, not governments. Abuse of power, as obvious as it is going on here, and it means nothing apparently. Criminal, Don Briere's favorite, criminal misuse of public funds. You telling me Cannabis Day wasn't a criminal misuse of public funds to try to stop a legal protest that had been
Hold
going
on,
on
what
for
about
30
before
years?
they actually legalized cannabis here in Vancouver? They told all those dispensaries that were running, come give us your information and pay the 30 grand.
35,
And
really?
we'll license you.
Yeah.
And how many of them got licenses?
3, 4.
Fuck yeah, there's a
Yeah, no,
handful.
there's some.
Yeah,
There
there's
wasn't too
there's 3 or
fucking
4,
many
yeah.
though.
Yeah.
The rest got their fucking 30 grand pocketed. It's the greasiest shit I ever heard. Like I
Yeah.
said, until we deal with that corruption on a government level, and I always have said this, it's going to take a lobby group. We got to pay a group that goes and fights these losers with their own words and their own terms on their own fucking.
Well, right
ground.
now I got Jack Lloyd lobbying the courts for me coming right up, and I'm hoping that's going to be successful.
I'm looking
I think
forward
that
to
might
seeing
be
that.
our only real hope.
It is
Lobby
really-
groups are
where's-
great, I agree, and they have made some difference down in the States where they have similar
Where's
things
Ted,
going on.
Where's Ted with his case? Like, where's he going with it? Where's he
I
next?
think he's got
There's still-
he's got a judicial review coming up as well to do with his latest raid where they seized all of his stuff again.
Right.
And that's going to, I think, be merging with mine. So
Okay.
Jack is working on both of
And
those.
then what? Toba's for growing. That's coming up in September, is it not?
Don't know.
Yeah. They're
Don't wanna say
taking
too much.
Jack and Kurt.
And there's
are handling
there's
that.
an Indigenous, I think that case is over, and they won the Indigenous group in Ontario that Jack, because there was a law that was passed by the Supreme and held up by the Supreme Court where the Natives and Indigenous people did not have the right to control gambling. And in that legislation, they threw in their cannabis
Oh, really?
for whatever reason. And Jack wrote a paper about it at the time. It was largely ignored. And until recently, because this was back, I think, 2009 or something. I don't know, I was going to the left myself. Whoa, we just had an earthquake here, folks.
Passing it over to you.
Anyway, this Indigenous group that had decided to open a dispensary on their own territory and handle their own supply got a hold of Jack, I guess. I actually read it in the paper, and I'm reading about this group and how they're going to use this to, and I thought, Jack's got to know about this, right? Because it might affect our case here. And then as I read on, Jack's their lawyer. And then as I talk to Jack about it, he's the guy that wrote the paper that they're basing all of this on. Because cannabis is not gambling. Access to cannabis is not the same as access to gambling
For sure
at
it's
all. And should not have been in the same legislation. And so I think that's going to get turned around properly if it hasn't been already.
Saskatchewan has adapted some kind of weird element for applying. Well, they have a portal system for if you're native to be able to access, so that you can be approved quicker through the government program.
For cannabis or gambling?
For cannabis.
For cannabis.
And then, but they've also allowed dispensing on their own land property as long as they supply a written, basically a standard operating procedure. So they present their.
They still want them to use from the licensed producers.
No, they don't. They
Okay, so
want
that's a
them.
good point.
They don't. They want them to adapt their own rules, and then it still needs Health Canada's approval, but they're allowed to adapt their own rules, which includes cultivation on their own land.
It needs to include low barrier access. That's what needs to be included. in that,
Agreed.
Is that they can place it,
but no
place
better,
it any way that they want, right?
but no better place for low barrier access than on the reservation.
That's the best place to start.
Like you have, especially in Saskatchewan reservations, being Métis myself, I know the addiction rates on
That's
the
right.
res back home.
Yeah.
To alcohol, to the prescription medication.
So,
right? So
farmers
that'd be a great place to start that.
Farmers grow things.
Yeah.
Lots of them. Lots of many different things.
Yeah, come from a farming
They
community.
use these things to like pay their rents and mortgages and feed their families and shit like that.
amazing how it works.
Some of them grow tomatoes, and some of them grow blueberries, and some of them grow strawberries, and some of them grow cabbages and lettuce, and they still make enough money to pay their bills with that stuff. They get pennies on the ton for the most part for what they're providing. Certainly pennies on the pound, that's for sure. If they were allowed to grow cannabis, cannabis would be brought to market by farmers who decided to grow it in a similar way to whatever else it is that they're growing. It's similar, cost overheads, and you would have stalks of cannabis, maybe 2 feet long, with all the buds still there. Either dried or drying. But they would figure out the right way to get it to the marketplace where it could be there in the produce section, and you could bundle it up and pay for it, and you probably wouldn't pay more than the $10 a pound that you pay for anything else. You wouldn't pay $10 a pound for just about anything.
Do you think weed should be the grocery store?
Why not?
You can get
It's a plant.
wine. You buy wine at the grocery store, why not? Yeah.
I prefer to see it at like a flower shop.
Yeah.
You can buy coffee. That can get people wired.
Yes, it
You
can.
buy all sorts of sugar products in those grocery stores, and that gets people wired.
Yeah.
There's
But what about the children?
there's plants.
They'll be able to see
Well,
cannabis.
what about the children? So it's,
I can see weed their whole
So
fucking
sure.
They just turned out
I
fine.
kind of
But we
agree.
can't walk down this aisle.
I kind of agree that just like they have wine sections in stores, that they
Yeah.
might have a cannabis section there. But in that cannabis section,
Yeah, it's
there
fair.
should be those
I
options.
think they were Pharmacy or Shoppers Drug Mart was trying to do something like that. So I don't know whatever.
Shoppers got out of it.
Yeah, did they?
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
I
out
was
of
gonna
it.
say, I
Well,
don't know
they
what
just
they-
bought out by
They
somebody.
bought
That's
up
what
and
happened.
somebody else
Probably.
bought them out.
So they've
yeah.
contracted it out to somebody else. It may still be available through their
Well,
stores.
you gotta go.
But
Like to
but
see
there should
that
be
come
there
up.
should be, just like you can buy cheap wine in those wine sections. You can make your own wine kit in those wine sections. just like that, there
Grow
should be
your
those
own bud, kid.
grow your own bud and have cheap bud there for
Yeah.
people.
Maybe
and
in a
I
vending-
agree, you don't sell it to, and certainly the concentrates are different.
Yeah.
Concentrates are a little different. They need to be regulated in a way where there's proper warnings about taking too much, greening out, those sorts of things.
Edibles too.
Hey, you know what?
That's a concentrate.
These are-
Edibles are all
yeah,
these are all
concentrate,
concentrates.
right.
Anytime you're going to concentrate the amount of THC and stuff that's in something besides what's stick on the
psychoactive,
flower.
you change it too, right?
How about a vending
So-
machine in the store?
Vending machines
that
work for
way
lots of
you can
different
check
things.
ID, right? Because government ID has a certain little symbols on it, stuff like that,
Yeah.
to see if you're buying it. Then the kids can steal it from the grocery store and walk out without paying
Well,
for
the
it,
kids,
right?
how often do they steal the cherries?
They steal bottles of wine, probably,
Kids,
right? Yeah. in
not
the
so
store.
much. I don't know. Some
Right, so-
kids when they're
From
getting
the
older,
grocery store?
teenagers.
Yeah.
I would
Teenagers,
have.
and they do
the
it, but
way
they can't
some
get
of
proper
these
access.
grocery stores are set up, I would have. But you know what? Any grocery store I've seen that have liquor in them, they are able to see that. Not that I'm like a shady person, but when you're like 17 and can't afford a bottle of wine, you want to get drunk on the weekend, like kids don't give a shit.
No,
You know what
they
I
don't
mean?
care where it comes from.
They
Yes.
don't.
Hey, but I feel like there's ways
I
that
went
it
blind
could be
from it.
regulated. Like there's no logical actually reason why we can't get at the grocery store, at the local corner store, at the flower shop, like
Or gas
at the
station.
health
Should be
store, at the
yeah,
herb
it should be
store.
as easy as a chocolate bar.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
anywhere you can
Yeah,
buy a
that's
chocolate bar.
harmful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's harmful.
I could just buy a pack of darts like you can buy a pack of fucking cigarettes.
You can go and
There's
probably.
so many other
Yeah,
things.
joints,
If
right?
that store has a pharmacy, you can probably go get some caffeine pills, the wake ups and
There you go.
It's a pharmacy.
Pharmacy.
A pharmacy. What is of this you speak?
Which is
Sir
about
Wells,
things that you
Sir
can get
Wells,
at the
what is
grocery
this?
store.
What is this place that you're talking about? Pharmacy. A better description might be what? Like a drugstore?
Over the
Drugstore,
counter.
A drugstore?
Drugstore.
A
that's
drugstore?
it.
Yeah.
They have
Oh,
drugstores.
shit, they got drugs at the drugstore?
Yeah.
Because,
So you
because
talk about
Super-
you're buying a
Superstore-
pack of darts or buying
Superstore
whatever.
has
You
all
see all the
that
shit
stuff,
they have
yeah.
in there.
How?
Yeah. They got in these government drugstores. They have all kinds of stuff like that with warnings on the
Great
labels.
drugs in the drugstore.
Lots of drugs in the drugstore. That'll kill you.
Yeah.
Yes.
They say right on the bottle.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're available. People can go and buy them. Adults can go in there and buy them. I don't know what the thing is on kids. If you can go buy yourself some Tylenol if you're a kid,
Probably.
probably
Yeah.
you can. You know,
Yeah.
all the over-the-counter stuff you can probably
Yeah.
go buy it at any
Yeah, I
age
think,
there.
I
You know,
think so.
I
yeah.
watched them dope my son up once on Tylenol when he was really young.
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's just,
no,
Like, we're just
do
gonna
it.
get him a little high.
yeah.
I was like, holy shit, he's just wrecked. He
You
comes
want
out
to get
of the
high if you're a
doctor,
teenager? Go to the drugstore.
Just a
You know?
little that.
All kinds of shit in there that'll get you high at the drugstore.
Taking up gravel, that's a party.
Better
Yeah.
yet, see Buddy here who knows all about it, and he's got a whole bunch of that shit from his mom's medicine cabinet or
Yeah.
whoever. Let's have a party.
See Johnny.
And those kind of pharmaceutical parties are happening all the time, have been for years and years.
Yeah.
People
Little
die.
Little purple drink dragon.
People die. Yeah.
Little Prometheus. Little
Dangerous.
Prometheus codeine.
Terribly dangerous shit.
Take a little ride.
And look at the regulations around that stuff compared to the regulations around cannabis. This makes no sense because it's making huge amounts of dollars, and that's a crime, in my opinion. That is like the very definition of corruption right
Well,
there.
it's too bad you're not a cop.
I guess,
Maybe
eh?
we could arrest a few people for that.
But I
crime.
don't think they can. Because I've made this appeal to cops. I've had them not disagree with me. They don't want to say they agree, but they not disagree with me. They don't disagree with
Well,
me.
they can't go against
But,
the set.
I presented this to the Vancouver Police Board. When we first pitched this 6.5, coming up in November, it'll be 7 years ago that Robert Laurie, the lawyer,
Yep.
came with me
Robert
to the
Laurie.
Vancouver Police Board where we pitched the CSP to them. We told them all about it, what we were going to do,
Right.
CSP.
I remember all that.
So I included in that
I
presentation,
remember talking to you when you were writing it up.
and I included in that presentation a really good case for investigating the federal government with respect to these regulations and laws around cannabis.
Right.
And I got told by the deputy chief there in a conversation afterwards that it was not within their jurisdiction to do such a thing. That as a city police force, they had like 7 kilometers outside the city limits that they could go to apprehend somebody who was trying to escape their jurisdiction. But they had no business investigating any federal government. The only people that could do that was the RCMP.
That's the RC.
I went to the RCMP headquarters in Ottawa and also made my case there
Forget it.
and never heard
Was
back
that part
from
of the
them.
Freedom Tour stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, you never heard back from them.
Nope.
Fuck overlords. Gotta love them, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how to live your life.
Yeah.
Even though you're not harming yourself or others in any way.
That's right.
I'm going to tell you.
Public servants.
They are.
Public
Yes, they're
servants.
public servants. That's
And
the
we
word
haven't
for it.
enslaved them. We actually pay them. It's like
But
a
that's-
contract.
But hold on, that's the problem when you have the largest employer in our country is our government. So they employ more people than anybody else.
Right.
So everybody there,
A lot of people on the
everybody there is on the tape.
That's
They're
right.
all drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
They don't, don't bite the hand that feeds you.
That's right.
But that's all our tax dollars. Like it's such a broken.
I just
It
heard the
reminds
number.
me
of
of misery.
I heard
It's-
the number of Homeland Security. 250,000 employees in Homeland Security in the U.S.
That's crazy. I wonder what that feels like.
250,000
You
employees.
see, the system is broken for us. For all those that are supposed to be the ones in charge here, the ones who are paying these people to protect us and serve us, for us it's broken.
Tried to say that on Canada Day. You work for me.
I loved what you
There's
said
a
on
video
Cannabis
of
Day.
that.
I watched that speech again, and
I was
so
so mad, dude.
you did
I
a
was the
great
most
job.
upset. I had lots more I wanted to say. I was just so mad there wasn't anything
I
else.
wanted to do it again.
Like, no victim,
Yeah.
no crime. I'm
I
tired
was
of
hoping
it.
they were going to come back on BC
I'm
Bud Day and I was
so
going to be able to
fucking
point my
tired of it.
speakers right at them and have at it. Because, at the end of that day when I look back, I thought, wow, I've
Like,
never
if
had
you
better
go-
opportunities to talk to cops. That's for sure. I had lots to say to those fucking people.
You
I'm
go-
sure I planted viruses in
You
lots
go
of their
rob
heads.
somebody, there's a victim to that crime.
That's right.
Right? You go beat somebody, there's a victim to that crime.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like, it's fucking crazy. You go smoke some weed, not one victim to that crime. Like I said, is there anybody rolling over to you right now going, these guys are trying to sell me some weed? Like, did you get
Yeah.
that complaint?
That's
no.
Are you acting on this complaint?
Yeah.
Is that why you're here?
Well, who complained?
well,
Who
they-
complained?
They were
A
there like
person
they
that
were.
wasn't there?
They were there like they were expecting a riot.
Like it was 2015.
Yeah.
That's how they were there.
The riot
Yeah.
that they
So we
caused.
didn't have the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I'm
it
pretty
was all
sure one of
taken care
those
of.
should have been taken care
Yeah.
of.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
over.
it's just showing us, yeah.
I was worried for
We're-
a second he was showing someone got a ticket.
No, we're
And I
good.
was
We're-
like, oh no, we're
No,
late.
we're good till 6:32.
Guys,
so,
I've been
yeah.
smoking a lot of weed, sorry. a little slow on the draw
I'm
today.
a rat
Oh,
hole,
that's
so
all
it's
right.
understandable. Yeah, no, 2015 was an eye opener. Right? If
For them too, right?
Well, yeah.
All of these things are experiments. They're trial runs. They're
But
seeing
I saw
what they can do and
some
what
of
they
the
can't do.
same cops then.
Well, I certainly saw cops that looked the same. They had that same real hard
Like,
nosed
at this point,
attitude.
We had some Lincoln sitting across the street on beat or Cannabis Day, filming us and everything. There's
I
some
know.
high class.
I know.
Yeah.
I lost it for a minute there.
No, Neil is watching us.
Maybe.
Yes, he is. Yeah. So we're good.
Hey, Neil.
And, 4 years now
Yeah.
since Anil and I started this little venture.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jeremiah was the one who said we should do this. Anil was doing the production for the different pot TV shows.
Well, there's not even anything at Pod TV. This is the only show left, isn't it?
Well, there's some other stuff that gets posted there. Other things people do
Well,
other
there's
stuff
not.
other
There's not
places.
you don't do your show anymore, right?
As for the
Other
actual
shows
pot
gone.
TV shows that came out of
Craig
Vancouver,
Williams shows, I used to love that, man.
Yeah.
You look forward to that Jared show every Friday. Man, we were killing it in content for a while, man. It was super fun.
yeah.
I heard you
Craig.
talking about your first, Craig X, that's right.
Yeah. Craig
I
X,
remember
yeah.
you talking about your first appearance on Pod TV.
McMahon.
And I couldn't remember, McMahon, Opus
I
had a
took
show.
over
Opus
Opus's
was
I
show.
just saw Opus yesterday.
Opus will be
He'll be
at
at Pot Fight.
Nice.
Yeah, he'll be a
He's
Pot
the
Fight,
official referee.
Of
Yeah.
course he is.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Who better? So
And,
you're
and
saying
one of the guest judges.
Well,
too.
I just
one of the guest
couldn't,
judges.
I couldn't remember my first episode of Pot TV. I think it was me hosting Jeremiah's show, but it's possible it was something because Jeremiah started promoting for the Prairie Cup. We started doing stuff in 09 or 010 when we started kicking the idea around. It was late October, I think. 010 was my first Prairie Cup, right?
Right.
So we promoted for that in July of 010, Treating Yourself in Toronto when that
Right.
back in the days. So.
Yeah.
And I think that's like my first kind of pot TV stuff. I didn't do the show until later, but it was like
But then you were a regular guest after that, and with what you were doing in
Continuously.
Saskatchewan there, and
it
all
was
the
so
rest
much
of it.
fun.
I mean,
But I mean, I was in town a lot back then. I've been around now that I don't work.
Yeah.
I got disability. I've been here lots this summer.
Nice.
Well, I was here for 2.5 weeks in July, and I've
Yeah.
been down here for all of August. Then I'm going till September 3rd, and then I'm back in October for my birthday.
That's it.
Yeah, because that's been iconic.
You're going to spend the winter in Saskatchewan.
Unfortunately, kids got school.
There are schools here.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
you know, I wouldn't
and not
want-
as much snow.
Listen,
I wouldn't want to deprive Saskatchewan of you.
If you can call my accent convincer, I'll move here tomorrow, bro. yeah. Other than that,
Well,
it's-
Saskatchewan's loss would be our
well, there's
gain.
nothing left. With the Prairie Cup is done, and the Skunk Funk has been gone almost 2 years now. April will be 2 years. So I mean, I'm really proud of what we accomplished in the prairies in 15 years. So it was fun. And if these new people think they can take their reins and run it like we did, I haven't seen anything organized Prairie Cup or Cup wise in Saskatoon ever again. Like so.
No, what's getting more and more organized, of course, is the legal side of things.
Right.
I see even things that are supposed to be sort of counter, what's going on. They're still wanting to
But
conform
we're
as best they can to the legal.
But we're still here. Pot Fights is happening in September.
Right.
We're still doing our 419 Cup next April.
We'll see what happens.
We're not gonna stop, bro. Like we're not gonna.
Well,
stop.
I'm not going to stop until
So we're
we
just
win
shifting gears to being different. And
But
my next big event for Cannabis Cup is the Masters of Cannabis, and I plan to host that here in Vancouver. So I want to start working on that, where it's just like the Masters of golf, but in cannabis.
I feel like I'm Freddie Pritchard right now.
And Neil says you did incredible work in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
You're a true trailblazer and a hard spot to do it.
Well, we all know.
Yeah.
Hats off to Freddie P. I'd see that guy. Last time I was in town, I
Yeah.
tried to reach out and see
Hollywood.
And
He
you know
works
what?
in the movie industry now.
Oh, nice.
So I guess he would be on strike.
He did holler at me last time I was in. I told him I want to get together and smoke with him.
I think the last thing
I'll
I
reach
knew,
out again
he
this
was
time.
working for Batwoman or Catwoman or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, I think I remember I talked to
Yeah,
him
yeah.
about doing something on the
Yeah.
He says he's still selling weed hard. So fucking anyhow, man. Like there's still that black
So is
gray
everybody.
market. Me too.
I mean,
I'll never stop selling.
it was pretty clear early on that the legal market wasn't going to satisfy the needs that we had been supplying as suppliers, at that time,
Right.
where people had them.
Right.
And so, who's going to stop doing what's been making their money and paying their mortgage? Like all of a sudden, because
Just ain't the same.
Because it's illegal. Because legalization happened, and now you got to stop selling weed illegally because it's legal, but you have to stop selling weed because that's illegal. Like that makes no sense.
I don't know. It's been 5 years and I still
They,
have
they,
stuff
they
selling
did
weed.
up the potential penalties. They did give more money to law enforcement to try to do more enforcement. But for the most part, who fucking cares? That doesn't matter. That would have never mattered to people that were selling weed when cannabis was illegal. They're going to keep selling cannabis during legalization,
But even
though it's illegal.
But even when it was illegal, we never acted like it was. So if you ever went to any
Well, you
party
did
that
and
we
you did.
were
Yeah.
around,
Yeah.
I never ever. But I haven't acted that way since I got my med license
Well.
in 08. Right, so I'm
Yeah,
a little
that
bit
gave
different.
that gave a lot of people a lot more.
could walk
But for
around
the
with
most
their
part,
balls out,
the
right?
whole, but a lot of people
My-
didn't have their balls out and wouldn't and never
My
did.
license is
And
still
never
fuck-
could.
My license is still good.
Right.
Like that Allard, I still got a MMAR. Like I pulled
I
that
do
thing.
too, but I don't have it
One
physical
time
anymore.
I was at fucking I was at a concert in fucking Regina, blazing my fucking vape, and the security guard rolled up and he's like, "You can't smoke that in here." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not going outside." He's like, "Would you have to?" And I said, "No, I don't. I got a medical card." He's like, "What?" I said, "Listen, dude." I said, "I got to medicate every 3 to 5 minutes. I got to have a toke." I said, "Or my back hurts." I said, "If I did that, I'd be outside the whole fucking show. I'd never see anything inside."
Right.
And I was like, "I'll show you my license." So I showed him my license. He's like, "I just got to check with my manager." He came back 10 minutes later. He's like, "You're good." And I was like, "Hell yeah, I am, dude." I was like, "Thanks." They just don't want to fuck with that MMAR paperwork, dude. Like, not
Well, I
since
had
the
different
Allard-
experiences,
Not since the Allard
you know.
decision. In Saskatchewan, I get treated really well if I present my license.
I kind of did too. I didn't have to present anything, but
Even
leaving
here?
your cup. I think the last time I was there, Roxanne and
Okay.
I, we were leaving your cup. I'm a couple hundred miles away. I'm just on a straight highway there.
Yeah.
You go through these tiny little spots where there's a gas station and something
Right.
there. And yeah, there's a sign that says slow down from what the regular posted speed is as you go through there. But there's no real
Right, I
reason
got
to
you.
do that. So I'm just cruising along, and now I'm being pulled over.
Now you're lit up.
And
That's why you slow down.
so he comes to the car window and he says, "Smells like a lot of marijuana in there."
Yeah, it is.
And I said, "Yeah, probably does, And it was kind of like, "Well, so I guess you got your medical?" And, "Yeah, I do." He never asked to see it.
No.
We had a real nice conversation. He was really
They're
good.
not even allowed to see it.
He was really good.
So they're not supposed to ask it. I voluntarily show it, but they're not supposed to ask.
He's like, I can tell by your plates you're not from here, you know? He says, here in Saskatchewan, we got these long straightaways, a highway, and every once in a while there's a little town or something there, and you're really supposed to slow down when you're going through those towns.
Yeah, usually
But,
from like
you know,
100 to like 90. Like, they don't want you to slow down a lot, dude. Like,
so as long as you're doing that, you're good to go, and I hope you have a great trip. And he never searched me, he never did nothing. It was all,
why?
I don't, but I was, like I said, I was only just a couple hours out of leaving the cup. So yeah, probably smelled like a lot of marijuana in there.
Yeah.
And then not long after that, in
our
Surrey,
kids were always stinky.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always some bomb ass.
you don't come back from a prairie cup without smelling like weed. That's for damn sure.
Such a
And you're still smoking long after you leave there because you're not finished everything yet. So unless you're Greg Williams, in which case you make a mountain out of all the strains you were given and you mix them all together and you roll them all up and then you share them with everybody, and that's how you can get rid of all the stuff you had at the cup there. Otherwise, it was quite a
an
task.
extra cup and an extra T-shirt, and there's a bag or two extra for them always.
So the next, and I'm in Surrey.
A lot, dude.
We had a couple of
Shit.
months. I'm in Surrey, and I get pulled over by this funny little ghost car. It's like a little economy car. And it's a RCMP woman, young woman, gets out, and she comes to the window and she says, "Smells like a lot of marijuana in here." Word for word.
Wow,
And I thought, wow, this is a thing now. That's what they're saying when they come up to your window and maybe they ran your
Maybe
name.
it just smells like a lot of marijuana in your vehicles, bro.
But in her case,
It's like,
I had
it's a
to.
thing. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure it's you.
She never searched me, but I had to produce my license. She spent a lot of time calling in, and she had never seen it before. She wasn't aware of any of this stuff. And I had lots of experiences like that with cops as well, but I never
Airport
had weed
security's
seized.
always been super fun.
Oh yeah, I never had
Oh,
problems
wow,
there.
man, I've had a guy look at my jar of weed, like spin it around, and I got a license for that. And he goes, for what? It's like, for that big jar of fucking weed you're spinning around looking at right now? He's like, oh, okay. He's like, can I see it? I was like, all right. Showed him my license. He's like, okay, cool. He said, have a good flight. I
This
was
is
like,
just such a weird Twilight
It's
Zone
crazy,
parallel
dude.
universe we're living in, though, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
he didn't go through your stuff and find a gun,
no.
to which you would say, "I got a license for
I'm
that."
pretty sure he didn't even know what the weed was.
It's like,
Or he was a stoner himself,
No,
and
he
he was
was,
so like, if I saw weed, it would probably
No,
be
no,
like, oh
he
shit.
was a foreigner.
He was a
He
foreigner.
He was a foreigner. I
And
just
he's
don't
like-
think he'd ever seen like a
Oh, they
glass,
hate me.
like a glass jar of weed. And of course, it was a Redbeard glass jar, so it's all fucking colorful and
Nice.
it's got a big
shit.
cork top in the top of
Well,
it
yeah,
with a sticker
okay.
on it that says "Medical Cannabis Saves Lives." Like,
but you need a license for
but
that.
I remember him
You
just
need
like,
a license for
I
that.
remember him just looking at it, going.
For what?
And I was like, I got a license for that. He's like, for what? At that moment, I was like, he doesn't know he's looking at weed.
Yeah.
He was clueless.
Like,
That's
is this
why he was
uranium?
spinning it around, looking at it. He was like,
Is this uranium? Is that,
Right.
is that what uranium looks like?
Oh, dude.
It must be radioactive or something. I mean, why would you need a license?
remember when the
You know,
pellet?
to have something, you know,
Remember
it's not,
everybody was
it's not
carrying
a
their
gun.
glass
Like,
around in the Pelican cases? I tried to get on an airplane with my bong in a Pelican case.
Right.
I remember a WestJet flight attendant going, "What's in that?" And I was like, "My bong." I was like, "That sounds a lot like a bomb." I was like, it's like
That's
my
unfortunate.
bonga. I'll have to articulate that G on the end. Bonga.
Yeah.
What's in there? My bonga. I was like, for smoking weed? I was going to say, for smoking weed?
Spelled out.
I like the dab motions. I think.
When I was coming back from Barcelona, I had my sublimator, and the dude's like, "Is that a hot iron?" And I was like, "Yes." And he's like, "Okay, perfect." Is that a hot iron? Yes, it is.
Yes,
You betcha.
that's what
It's
it is.
exactly what it is. It gets hot, and I get hot on it.
Yeah.
But I was smoking weed in Amsterdam with this dude from Denmark, and he said that there, if they saw us smoking on a sublimator, that the police would arrest you and charge you with a crime and this blew my mind, because if they didn't understand what you were doing, they consider it what they call junkie behavior. So they would arrest you for smoking off an apparatus that they didn't understand, and they would consider that junkie behavior, and you'd be charged as if you had heroin on you.
Wow.
Even though you paid,
That's-
even though you paid $2,000 for that.
And I
apparatus.
was just like, I told buddy, I'm like, well, I guess we're not going to Denmark. Like,
Wow.
peace out, yeah, we're not just not going there.
But you would think that they would be
Well, I
familiar
was
with
just
these
blown away.
apparatuses.
Now you think we got it bad? I met these cats in Prague at CannaFest from Slovenia, who fucking grew weed, which is insane to me because you can get 10 years in jail for growing 2 marijuana plants.
Wow.
They confessed to me that their friend was in jail right now for growing 2 weed plants. Then they told me they had 2 weed plants at their house. And I was like, you're not worried about going to jail for 10 years? So their government believes that heroin and marijuana are the exact same drug.
Because that's what
And
the
I-
USDA told them.
Hold
it was.
on. I said, well, we just need show and tell.
Yeah.
We just need to get them in a room with a glass, 2 rooms separate, glass window for both of them. We'll put a heroin addict in with all the heroin he can handle. We'll put a weed head in with all the weed he can handle. And you just watch the show.
Yeah.
And at the end, you make your own informed decision on which one you think is worse. I'll guarantee you which one wins every time.
Yeah.
It is so far beyond
Right?
ridiculous.
So
man.
how
It's just-
so how you can believe it, and that's what happens when you're ignorant to something. It's the worst part of ignorance is that you're so blind to what the real is,
Yeah.
right? And that's easy. Ignorance is bliss.
well, and it's not even that they're ignorant; they actually think they
There's-
know.
No,
They-
that's
they-
worse.
they-
That's
yes,
ignorance
isn't it?
mixed with self-entitlement.
And misinformation.
Well,
You know,
that
they-
goes a far way
I
too.
mean, my family's been sold a bill of goods. All my growing up life, my whole religious basic family have been sold a bill of goods about cannabis and every other drug. The drug's a drug's a drug. But let's go down to the drugstore. You know,
Let's go down to the booze
Yeah,
store.
well, we need to get mom's stuff from the drugstore, but don't be doing any drugs. You
Here's
know,
a
drugs
note-
are bad.
Here's
Oh no,
a
but
note
these drugs.
to get me a pack of cigarettes.
It's just so.
Right?
You know, Jack Harrer was so correct in The Emperor Wears No Clothes.
100%.
This is the biggest hypocritical thing I can imagine. Like, how upside down can things really be?
Right.
I mean, I feel like I'm living in some
Don't I
alternate
look
universe.
beautiful in this shirt? But you're not wearing one.
Can you imagine me
What
sitting
do you
around here in a
fucking
real,
mean?
sitting around
Yes, I
here
am.
in a normal, reasonable world, and we're having a funny conversation. Well, you know, there's probably some alternate universe out there where they even make it a crime to have cannabis. Can you imagine that? You know? Well, yeah, and you know, they could tell this terrible story about these dictators that controlled the media and had huge profits to be made on this other stuff, and they demonized what everybody on that planet knows is like the greatest plant ever, because it's the whole root basis of their
5
economy
years
and
after
their life and
legalization,
health.
we're still talking about the same.
It's
shit.
so ridiculous.
It's insane.
It is
It's like
how
the fucking Twilight
fucking
Zone.
crazy can this be? Was the whole human race so hypnotized and brainwashed that
Yes.
we're still trying to get over this?
Yes.
And of course the reasons are
Yeah.
that there's a whole lot of money and power involved in maintaining that status quo.
Marketing, I think, and just they're constantly learning and evolving their ability to fuck you.
True.
So I think they spend all day with the fucking super thinkers and supercomputers cooking up
The
their
computers
fucking next
now, yeah.
bullshit, man. Like,
Health Canada
right?
admitted it to me.
Just like COVID.
Several times over the course
For
of the
sure.
almost 3 years that they were contemplating our application. Benoit Segwan said to me, our team is working diligently on your file every day.
Bullshit.
Well, of course he was.
Yeah.
They were spending hours and hours talking about how the fuck do we deny
I've
this
had-
application.
I've had a medical
You know?
license since 2008. Guess how many times my medical marijuana has been fucking inspected?
None.
0.
Yeah.
Not
As it
one
should be.
health inspector since 2008. We're in 2023.
Yeah.
Right.
No one's ever showed up. Why? Because they're real shitty at their job. They're lazy, bureaucratic losers.
They're
And
going
they ain't
after the-
sending these
the
people
fucking-
from way the fuck out east to come to Saskatchewan to find this prairie boy growing his 149 plants in his basement.
No, instead they go after Ted Smith because he's high profile.
For
He's somebody that they can help
for
stamp
sure.
out a whole bunch of.
For sure.
You know, they come after us and they won't give us a license. 3 years. I believe there was a whole team of people
Smoke
working
broken
diligently at
system
taxpayers' expense every fucking day for almost 3 years to try to figure out how to say no to us.
How to fuck it?
Yeah, how to
Yeah.
say no. How do we say no to this application? That's what they were working on. They weren't working on it.
Right.
If they wanted to
But,
say
I
yes
mean,
to
these
it,
are the very people,
easy as could
But
be.
these are the very people from the beginning. Read their information. Don't agree that marijuana is a medicine that can help anybody.
It's the policy of the company they work for.
That's correct.
Yeah.
They just got forced by reasonable access and us in court to be the gatekeepers of this fucking sacred program. How about you just fuck off and we'll run it the way we need to?
And
That's
at the
where
very
I'm at.
least, how about
Not only on
how
the
about you get to know
recreational,
us?
but medicinal
How about
level.
you come down and see what's going on?
They don't
How
wanna
about you
hear
familiar?
that.
How about you sit and smoke a joint on a regular basis for a while with some other people and chat about
Right.
these things?
Well,
you know,
you used to go
These
to
are-
those lit conferences. You couldn't even find people smoking weed.
No,
You find
you're
people
allowed
drinking
to.
some fucking booze.
Yeah.
And talking about the weed deal they were going to do.
Yeah.
You're going to find somebody smoking the product.
Crazy.
It's insane.
Insane.
Yeah. So
So we got to uninsane. We got to unfuck the world still. We're not done, but we're up against bigger odds than we were back when you're talking about the heyday. You know, this is not the heyday anymore. This is the post-pandemic, post-legalization day.
I don't know about you, but I still sell weed.
Well, and I'm still selling. Yeah, you do know about me. You do know about me. I'm about as
So you
blatant
want
as you
some
can
good
get.
cannabis? You can holler at the fat kid. I'll hook you up with a bag, in a bag,
Or you can go to
for a
canamatch.ca.
reasonable
People
price.
can, if they're in Saskatchewan and they don't know you, they can go to canamatch.ca. They can find somebody in Saskatchewan. They can hook up and figure out how to meet you.
If you're
No.
on Maine and East Cordova, you can go to the RV.
The unregulated market is alive and well and thriving.
It is. It's
Because
still
that's
alive.
how legalization
And
was
I'm proud of
structured.
that.
That's how it was structured.
Right.
Because they could still come after you. And if they're not coming after you, they're coming after
Oh.
Ted, or they're coming after me, or they're
But
coming
I got
after
better
somebody else.
weed.
Right? I know. They don't like that.
They don't. Well, that's
They'll
what
do
happens
everything.
when you've been in the game for 30 years.
Have they tried to coerce you into their side of things?
No, a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you got good weed, they want you.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure they want
Well,
everybody.
You're the best at what you do.
You know, it's
Like
like
you
all
said,
these enforcement people.
When
What
you're
if-
cold pressing bubble half, bro.
That's
Award-winning bubble
I
half.
wonder how many grams of weed that equals that you got in your hand there. You know, 30 grams would be
Enough
a
to
little
get you
a
high,
small
that's
chunk.
for sure.
Well, based on how much 30 grams of flour would get
Right,
you,
right.
you know, how much is that? How much is this time?
There's probably about 15 or 16 grams in there.
Oh my
now.
God, you got a license for that?
I do. I do have a license for that.
I should wear my gloves if I'm going to touch that. Holy
Hold
shit.
on, bro.
That shit's
Hold on,
dangerous.
hold on. I got you.
Open it up.
I got you.
Open it up for you.
I got you.
I heard that stuff's
Hold on, I
dangerous.
got you. I'll wipe it down. There you
Oh.
go. Just my fingerprint.
But it's emanating radioactivity or something, isn't it? I mean, why would you need a license? You can't
Cannabidiol
even-
radioactive
See,
material.
you can get a license for that, I guess, because you with a medical license can grow what you want, and thanks to the Allard case and the
Howard and the Smith decision
yes,
in all its
yeah.
forms,
you
and
can
anywhere I
take
want to
off
smoke
whatever
it.
cannabinoids you want
That's
and
right.
do this with it.
I was sitting on a bucket in my outside my new when we were trying to open up a new shop in downtown Vancouver, smoking a fatty, and this cop came by and he's like, "You can't smoke that here." And I'm like, "Man, there's people walking by smoking cigarettes."
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'll fucking smoke this right here." I'm like, "I got a medical license," and he went to start arguing with me, and I just tore into him. He did this. Okay.
Yeah.
And just walked away, and I was just like, I said, "That was the correct response, sir."
Yeah, exactly.
And he just fucked off. Just stop arguing with me, man. I'm done arguing with you.
Talk about criminal
I
hypocrisy.
could be eating opiates and be dead. Like
But
that was my
stay
option.
with tobacco
Yeah.
for a moment there.
Yeah,
Talk
fuck
about
that.
criminal
Dude, people
hypocrisy.
he's like, "You can't smoke that downtown." I'm
You
like,
can
"But
smoke
everybody
this
can
stuff,
smoke
you know,
that
that
shit
holy
all day."
shit, you know, I mean, it
crack.
kills.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah.
We
you
can use some
you
crack
go
right
one
now.
block, half a block over, and you're golden.
Chase off the
No,
tin
but
foil, you know.
I mean, I just want to talk cigarettes because the cigarettes is such a huge criminal hypocrisy.
All right.
Holy fuck! Yeah, it's so dangerous. They're writing nasty, really dangerous warnings on the fucking thing itself that you're smoking there. But you can smoke that stuff. Not just you can buy it in gas stations and anywhere all over the place.
You can chew it
But,
in your lip.
but
you
like
can
you
smoke it
said,
in your lungs.
you can be
You
standing
can
there
patch it on
with a
your
bunch
arm.
of people smoking that shit, and they're all good to go. The cop comes around the corner or cruises by and he checks out who's what. You got that reefer, and man, you're a criminal. You're going to jail. You're in a night's ruin.
At
You know,
least this guy didn't. He just was like, "Okay," and just he
Once
literally threw his hands in the air. It was the greatest thing I ever seen, man. It's like I wish I had that on camera.
I'm sure there's instances of cops having taken somebody away to jail for standing there smoking a reefer, and moments later are themselves smoking tobacco,
smoking, yeah,
taking a coffee break
I
or
need
whatever.
a cigarette break.
Yeah.
Rest of that weed head was hard. Just have a little shot off like fucking
Oh
whiskey.
man. If it was just funny, that would be great, but it's just.
But it's the truth.
It's the
Yes.
truth, and it's so bad.
That's part of how broken the system is. So I hope cannabis warriors like yourself fix these problems.
We need the media
You're
back.
up, you're up. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're gone.
We need
They
somehow
don't
we need
care the
independent
same,
media.
right?
Now
So-
Facebook has decided that they're going to ban all news reporting or anything that looks like news reporting.
Well, that's
So-
kind of good because we don't want the
November,
government
you said-
to.
I'm not sure it's kind of good. I like to read between the lines of these
Is that what you
things.
said in your case, November?
Well, but it's already being implemented.
October?
The real danger is it's once again the government overstepping what they're supposed to be able to do in
That's
terms
right.
of telling us what we can and cannot say.
Yeah.
And now the social media and Google, they've been forced to respond because there's no way to meet the
And now you're hearing the
they over
advertisements.
legislated
When
even that.
you live in a
like,
government-controlled country and they control what you see for information,
And
But
that's
now
what,
they
that's
go
what I,
get your news from
They
CB
can't
fucking
tell us-
CB.
so that's what I was going to say.
Great.
So now there's all these campaigns going on by Global and CBC and the other mainstream news sources. Come and get your news from us. Subscribe to us. We'll send you your news. And these people are not putting the politicians' feet to the fire anymore. There's no proper investigative journalism going on anywhere. It doesn't get past the editors if it is.
There's
They're
still
owned by the
some
fucking government.
people keeping some independent rebel news.
There
There's
is
some-
independent,
there is some
but any
independent.
mainstream
Well,
is
forget it. You
the,
never-
the
you
mainstream
can't
are not
trust- you can't
are not
trust
something you
You
can
mean
trust
the
anymore.
government subsidized ones?
Yes.
Yeah,
That they're
CBC,
asking
yes.
us to pay
CBC
subscription
Global.
for?
Global.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
the ones
And
that
asking
we
Facebook to
pay
pay.
for, we pay for as taxpayers.
Don't worry, these
Now
are the
we're
same
being
people who
asked-
say drink your milk and brush your teeth.
The food pyramid,
know.
bought and paid for by the.
It's just
Fuck
beyond
you.
ridiculous.
Right,
Wear your condoms. You know,
Be
the
safe and on your face
same
too.
fucking people, dude.
I know.
So
Yeah, it's like I don't like this. That's why I'm here, right? I'd like to not be here. I'm getting
So
old
all
now.
those
I want to go
free-
fishing. I want to go find a
free
nice lake
thinkers.
somewhere or something, and just relax for a while. But how can I relax? Because I never liked bullies in the first place. That's kind of how it was for me. I don't know why I didn't. My dad was a bit of a bully, and he didn't
but
mean.
these bullies don't
you know,
play by their own rules.
So I don't like bullies to
it's
begin
tough.
with, and I don't like unreasonableness. So when somebody's in a debate and they're being unreasonable and they're bullying, I don't like that very much at all. So now I find myself in a world where weed is illegal, and it makes no sense. And the people that are making it illegal are fucking bullies, big time, with their criminal fucking sanctions and this and that, and all the rest
We'll
of it.
just bolt fence off your
And
park.
I couldn't stand it. I mean, just because of the person I was raised by my parents. When I really got it, I'd been going to the pot rallies for 5 years. I've been going to 420 and Cannabis Day for 5 years with my son. We had quickly become the main volunteers for those events, helping David out.
Back
But I
in the
wasn't
day.
educated
Shout out
about
to
it.
David, Melmo Levine.
Yeah.
Old school.
He was
OG.
the one who'd show up, in the first couple with a wagon with an effigy of Ford on it or whatever, and
Yeah,
a
man.
bush.
You
rather,
guarantee
sorry.
you had a backpack full of fucking killer too.
Oh yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
They went to jail for that.
Afghani bull rider.
So yeah, I didn't get it. I mean, I knew it shouldn't be illegal. I got some of it, but it hadn't sunk in yet, right? It hadn't quite figured out exactly how criminally hypocritical this whole thing was. And then I did the thing with the herb school with him that long weekend, and we read The Emperor Wears No Clothes at every safety meeting we took every 45 minutes or so.
Nice.
And I learned stuff I'd never understood before, and it all clicked with me, and
That's
I had
wild.
this moment of epiphany and all the rest of it. But yeah, it's once I got that, I had no choice. It was, my mom asked me when I was doing the first Freedom Tour, I'm going up to Malahat, and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Freedom Tour
You're
is
a
super fun
skilled,
stuff.
trained carpenter for all of your
Yeah.
life. You've managed all these job sites. You got your
Still tripping.
And here you
Highway
are.
420?
Well, that was 2010.
That was good stuff.
But
dude.
2005, I do this Freedom Tour. and,
05?
Oh, 06, 06. 06 was
Mark,
the
yeah, I was
first
going
one.
to say, because Mark did his
No,
04
06.
overgrowth. of
05,
government
we
tour.
opened the herb school.
Right.
In 06,
Then he
I
got-
did the Freedom
then he
Tour.
got deported, right?
And then well after I got deported. And so, my mom says, what are you doing? And I said, Mom, you raised me to just do what the right thing is. And I've been presented with some facts, and I'm just doing what is the right thing to do. Whether you understand it or not, this is what I need to do right now. And that is what it is. And it hasn't stopped. I want it to stop. I want this to end.
Well, I've asked you that before. We've had that conversation about what the end goal is.
Low
And
barrier
what
access,
do you truly see as the end for you?
I see that cannabis is treated like the
if you
commodity
just-
that it is.
So you just throw
With the
it
dynamics that it
in a
has.
farmer's market, or you buy it
Let the
at
marketplace
drugstore.
decide
wherever.
Let the government put regulations on where regulations are warranted, which is for the concentrates to some degree, like for
Right.
anything else.
Right.
And, and those are the
It's really
regulations that
strong.
work for just about everything.
Some you can
Just
green out on.
say it on the label.
Right.
Do some advertising campaigns.
Use
Run
the
some commercials or something.
Proper education.
Educate the people. Educate them that, hey, these things are in our environment. You can eat too much.
Right.
You know, don't
the
worry
guys-
about dying. You're not going to die, but you can eat too much. It's not fun. You won't like it. Something we're trying to help
Happy
you.
Hour guys, Gord Hayes and Stoner Jesus.
Yep.
Right.
So they're doing an introduction to dabbing
Right.
at their Airdrie, Fred Bell's head
Fred
shop.
Bell's
Yeah.
place, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like there should be that kind of stuff
Absolutely.
available to people to be able to be like, I can
Absolutely.
just go online or I can just show up at this place and they're going to ease me into this.
There
'Cause
needs
there's
to
some
be an
people that
apology.
Have their hard dab the first time and pass out and never want to dab again. And that's a terrible experience. Or dab, we're too hard and green out.
That's right.
But I mean, take it easy. Ease into everything you do.
But every stoner you know has done that. Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's,
I
it's
watched my
part
daughter
of,
do
it's
it.
part of the journey.
Look, it is
You
part
need
of
to
the
know
journey.
what those parameters are and what it is that you really probably don't want to go back and revisit again anytime
Right.
soon. You know, it's okay to know that. And how else do you know it but, you know, eating too much at some point?
I've been on
So-
the edge, but I have never greened out.
No, I haven't greened out either.
I've never
vomited.
passed out.
But what, like, yeah, what's like the full
From-
No.
definition?
cannabis.
No.
Like,
Have you like
Oh,
what's
okay.
like? I know a lot of people
I
do
would say
green
that
out
I
when they
croned
actually
out
like.
where you croned out where you went too far.
Because
That-
there's been
that
times where I
happened
got
once.
like real high and I was like, I'm just gonna dip for a bit.
Have a
Like,
nap?
I'm just gonna, I'm not.
Yeah.
I
So
guess
treating yourself.
my,
You know,
my
that's
first
the-
one
does
would
that
have been
count?
hot knifing tie stick in a stairwell on a job site.
So according to the government, that'd be $125 or $150 fine for overconsumption of
I
cannabis.
probably qualified for a few of those in there.
Yeah.
But I remember, but I didn't really green out. But holy fuck, I was like, blah, 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 blah. I didn't pass out, but I was like so fucking wow on
I
that.
had too many cupcakes once.
at
where I
Greg
thought
Williams'
something
place-
was wrong with me.
At Greg Williams'
I never
place,
puked
Roxanne
at
ate too
green
much
out.
brownies one time.
You can eat too
And
much.
and she was like drunk. She was just I had
It
to
is
carry
like
her.
being
you know,
drunk.
It
If
was
you
very
do
much
real
like being
high
drunk.
doses. I
And
find
then-
if you do real high doses and you fight the drowse, then later it feels like you slur your words a little bit and you kind of stumble. It's a party though.
Those
If you
were-
fight the
Party.
fucking going to sleep.
Those were
I-
Dory's brownies.
Dude, like one time treating, or no, we were in Toronto for fucking something that was there, and we went to when Mark had a spot on Church Street.
Right.
And that's when Thompson Caribou had that real strong
It
syrup.
was Halloween.
Yeah.
I drank two.
I was there on the
Oh,
Freedom
that's
Fair.
serious.
I drank. Oh, we were there for the Karma Cup. I
Yeah.
drank two fucking bottles of syrup and did Pot TV live. Then went over to fucking Vape on the Lake and ate those Mr. Bud's like 800 milligram fucking chocolate bars that Shane King had. Holy fuck! Didn't they try to get me and Scotty Beard to do a fucking like an interview? And we just stood by the door, both of us just fucking baked. We stood there for about 20 minutes blocking the door until there was like a lineup. He looked at me and goes, "Are we fucking doing this?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Just go sit down." I'm like, "Cool, dude." That's about as fucked as I've been on edibles. But I mean, I think
Well,
I took like
once again at Greg Williams' place, a
5,000,
different
6,000
party.
milligrams.
Butter King was there, and he's,
Oh, he always
he's going
there,
to
is
stop
he?
making butter. By the way,
What?
he's about done with it. So
No.
he can't get the right strain of weed that he's been using all these
Just
years.
all the time.
He just can't.
Is there
can't
still like?
duplicate it.
I want to get some. Is there still?
He's probably still got some.
before
Get
it's
a hold of
over?
him. He just
Okay.
lost his daughter in a car
I'm
accident.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Oh man, my
Terrible
heart goes
story.
out.
Coming
Sorry
home
to
from
hear
work after a
That's-
night shift and fell asleep on the wheel.
Oh,
and,
no.
Right at Canada
God.
Way at the
that.
exit
It's
there.
tragic. That's
Tragic for sure.
I'm sorry to hear
Opal,
that.
you know, she was a
Man.
wonderful girl, and I feel so bad for Steve and Janice. You know, I can't imagine what that's like to lose your child like
I
that.
couldn't imagine either. I watched my mom lose her daughter. It's pretty horrific.
And her grandmother was there too, and I said to her, "No grandmother should have to see this." You know, it's terrible.
Sorry to hear that.
So- But
Sorry
yeah,
about
so
your
Steve was there at his podium with his big throne chair there at
Yeah,
Greg's
yeah,
place,
the big
all
chair.
set up. And I did like a couple hours worth of whatever I had to do to help organize what was going on, and then I had time, and now I could get high. And butter was all the rage amongst Dory and Carol and a few others, and I hadn't really tried it yet. A couple sniffs here and
Concentrates
there.
it and fucking blew up.
And
right?
so I step up to the podium, and Steve gives me a big fucking dab of it, and I'm like, whoa, and then he's like, hey, you can't be flying around on one wing. I just sort of staggered a couple feet away from the desk there. So he gave me another one, and now I just plunked onto the sofa, and I sat there for about 5 hours, I think. I couldn't move.
Yes, rip.
I was conscious, but I couldn't move. I couldn't make my arm move up or down. I couldn't make my legs move. I couldn't get up if I wanted to. So
Well, we were at the
that was
last
that.
coalition party. I watched the guy do a face plant after he had his first dab with Jason Wilcoxon.
I've seen that with
I've seen face plants
It
too.
was crazy.
Not good at all.
And I saw a guy pass out at the Kush Cup once too off one dab.
But Ontario did it to me as well on the first Freedom Tour. The Kindred Cafe.
Oh, that was a fun place to go.
Woo.
Old school.
Yeah, they had the
good edibles.
milkshakes.
Yeah,
The infused milkshakes for $25.
Yeah.
A big price to pay back in the day, but oh my
Waste
God,
of-
right?
yeah.
And I didn't know any better. I just loved milkshakes. What do I know? So I take the milkshake. Now the rest is a kind of a blur.
For
I remember getting to Puff Mama's place down on the strip there, and she was having a party for me. It was the first Freedom Tour. So we're at the table there. We're early. Me and 2 or 3 other people there. My little entourage for the Freedom Tour. We get there early, and there's all these tables set up, and they've all got a big thing of brownies in the middle of them. So Puff Mama's, Joey's doing whatever she's doing in the back there, and we're just sitting at the table there eating these brownies. She comes back a little while later. She goes, "Oh my God, you ate that whole? That's for a dozen people," she said.
Oh, jeez.
That's where I was out for 2 days in the back of her shop.
That whole thing.
I couldn't leave her place for 2 days, 2 nights,
That's
solid
the
2 days,
club's
2
not
nights.
there anymore. She gave up her spot.
Is that right? Eh?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. I thought
that's a while ago now, a couple of years ago.
but wasn't she getting a new spot?
She tried to. They do a lot of stuff in like comedies in the park and stuff.
I
So I think, and then she sort of has like these moonlight spots where she sort of does a few shows, and I think they're
see.
probably like, like empty kind of warehouse garage type. But yeah, the Queen Street location was the Underground Comedy Club. I've spent more hours high and laughing at unbelievable people. Like I saw Tommy Chong's wife there.
Chelsea or
Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Chelsea,
she's a hilarious comedian.
She is.
Yeah.
But I've seen like superstar comedians there.
Nice.
I used to have a quote on the wall, and I miss Joey's place. So there was a lot of good times in Toronto, smoking fucked out. Vapor Central too.
My best
Like,
memory
I
of
miss
Joey's
that.
place was
Like,
the Killing Time
it's
Down.
unbelievable. Yeah,
The Killing Time Down just killed it there. That
Vape on the Lake. Like there's a bunch of places that just
Yeah.
ain't there.
I
The
know, right?
Kindred, like even like let's go way back to Hamilton, Up in Smoke. Chris Goodwin,
Yeah.
right? Matt Murdoch,
The,
old
the hash
school,
mob.
dude. Yeah, dude.
The
Like,
original hash mob.
yeah, the guys that were ruthless that just didn't care, man.
They inspired us here.
Yeah,
You know?
all of them.
And we did our own version of the hash mob as well.
It's awesome.
Right,
Yeah, like I
right
said,
from. So the Herb School was 1 block
Up in
over.
Smoke.
So the Herb School was 1 block over from where we are right
Yeah,
here.
I remember.
The courthouse is right there. So there was Dawn and Carol's. I think it was Carol was doing her
On
Going
commercial.
or whatever from the Kind bus.
That's right.
And
Commercial.
so
that was huge.
We did a flash mob or a hash mob of our own here. We snuck out the back of the Herb School, all carrying chairs and tables, and boom, at 4:20, right in the foyer of the courthouse there, in that lower area.
just lit up.
Lit it
eh?
up, everybody's sitting at their table like we'd been there for hours, enjoying our weed, smoking our pipes, and all the rest of it.
I remember when the 420s used to block off fucking roads down at the art gallery.
Yeah.
Like I just really missed Sunset Beach for 25th anniversary. Like how many people were there? Like just epic times we've had.
I had a
If you
cop-
look back, all of it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Because we never ever,
Well-
like I said, I'll go back. We never ever acted like the plant was illegal, ever. We sort of just been lighting up fatties and going hard for a minute.
So after those 3 tough-looking cops left what was BC Bud Day, we had one sergeant from transit, dressed like VPD. Hard to tell the difference unless
Right.
you read the patch. But he was there on Cannabis Day as well. So he came into the center where all the tents were, and I met him, as he was coming, and we were sort of heading for each other there. A nice, friendly cop that I've known for a while already. He was VPD, and so he. We're talking about, he said that on Cannabis Day, he said couldn't disagree with a lot of what you had to say there. I said,
Right.
"Well, thank you for saying that." He says, "But I got to tell you, you reminded me of my first wife." And I said, "Uh-oh." I said, "I'm sorry about that, but I mean, you loved her at one time, right?" And he says, "Well, there you were, standing up there on the stage, telling me to leave." So we had a little chuckle about that. And yeah, he didn't disagree with all the points that I was making there with him, for sure.
We were quite
and so we
involved
talked
with
about
the police,
2015, and we talked about the cost to the city. Because
Right.
he said, from our point of view, these things are not cost free.
Right.
I said, yeah, you always have to send a few cops. And he said, then there was 2014 where all those people we took to hospital from ODing on edibles. I said, or on whatever, but I said I think edibles played a role in a number of those people.
Right.
There was a dozen or so people.
Right.
And
But I mean,
he
that's
said
the
he
service
personally
they pay for.
carried some poor person on his back to get him to hospital. And I said, well, you didn't need to do that. But he goes, I know that now, but whatever. And he talked about the cost to the city of having these protests and why the city might be wanting to shut them down. He said, because I remember when all the roads around North Valley were all shut down because of you guys.
They used to accommodate and work with us, but we had good people that kind of worked inside back then. There was more than just us, and it's turned into this
Well,
battle
pandemic-
royale.
The legalization
David
and the
versus
pandemic
Goliath,
did
if
both
you
of
ask me
those
at this
things.
point.
Legalization came along, and cannabis culture wants to be legal. Of course they do. We all want it. Everybody wants to be legal. Nobody wanted to be illegal. So cannabis culture is kind of out of the protest game, but that doesn't even really get tested because the pandemic hits, right?
Right.
Then on March
I
fucking
agree.
11th, the pandemic
I
hits.
agree.
April 20th, like 5-6 weeks away, and we just shut it down.
Hey.
And
That's
Dana came out
definitely
first and
the
said
factor.
something a little bit vague, and then we all talked about it, and he went right back out and said, no, we're not having it, we're not going to be part of spreading anything, and blah, blah, blah. So 2 years of no 420, and then 2 years later, cannabis culture can't be involved because of the legal processes that they're in, and the pandemic has really separated us, and legalization has really separated us, and most of the people, they think it's legal now, they think the fight is over and that we won, and they don't care anymore. The people in small communities, they're all happy with paying $10 and $12 a gram, at the legal store, because it's legal. They're not going to get arrested. So they don't mind paying their fine up front. And, and you're in Vancouver too. You don't have to worry about the cops tapping you on the shoulder anymore when you're standing with your fellow cigarette smokers and getting arrested. You're good to go. You can have 30 grams on you,
You can just smoke that.
So, yeah, and now you're here in BC, you can smoke whatever the fuck you want and
yeah.
they're not going to arrest you.
We got pot
So-
fights coming up, though. At least.
Yeah, we should talk about pop fights a little bit, but at 6 o'clock I
We're
understand
after
that.
6.
I know.
Can I plug it?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
yeah,
Okay,
for
so
sure.
September
we already
1st,
did the-
2023,
we
but
did,
general
Are
admission
you the
is-
main event, you
is
and
free.
Karen?
I don't know if we're the main
I've
event.
seen you've been training for that.
Yeah, high altitude training
Yeah,
in the Caribou.
yeah.
So then it's at 2026 East, what is it? 43rd Ave in Vancouver. So in East
From I think
Vancouver.
4 o'clock until 10 o'clock or something like that.
Right, and like I said, general admission is free,
Free.
so our
Yep.
sponsors help pay for general admission.
Yep.
There is the 42 Live, which of course I've entered and hoping to win.
Which
my
is a cup that
second
you can take
cup.
part in. And
That's right.
I hear there's food too.
There will be food.
Yeah, and I believe there'll be gluten-free blue food and some vegan stuff.
Yes, it is well-
But mostly there's
Two.
going to be fights.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there is fights. That's happening.
Hot fights, so
Hot fights.
don't go expecting blood because, we're...
No pots and pans.
no,
will-
no,
no
we're-
pot- no
we're-
pots and
we're,
pans
you know,
will be
There
hurt.
might be some blood from the actual wrestlers.
Ever seen two potheads fighting?
Right. Like
Come
I
on.
said,
No, you haven't
There
seen two
might,
potheads
there
fighting.
might be from the actual wrestlers because there is real wrestlers coming to fight as
Over weed?
So
Stoned people?
no, I don't think they're stoned.
Well, that's what I mean.
So we got professional wrestlers coming in.
So it's
that-
not pot
that-
fights. It's just
It is pot fights.
there's going to be some fights
No,
that aren't
we're
related
fighting.
to pot,
We're in the ring. Just there's actual wrestlers in there with us, as if
and they're going to beat you up.
not us.
You're gonna beat them
They're
up.
going to beat each other up while we're like not fighting. Because I'm a cripple, I can't get in and actually
Are you doing the
wrestle
Four people in
somebody.
the ring.
Correct. It's
So-
like a tag team match, kind of, but the
Are
wrestlers
you
will actually
are you going
wrestle.
to be involved in that grueling of the most grueling of the 4 categories, the pillow fights?
Yes, I will be in a pillow fight.
Wow.
Because that's about all my
Wow.
crippled ass can handle.
I can't.
You
I can't
too,
even begin
probably.
to train for that. So you
Well,
know,
what? You've had a pillow fight before?
I'm too old.
You gotta be fucking kidding me. Asia just got on a trampoline yesterday
Yes, I saw
and
the
had a
video.
pillow fight with
She
a
set me up.
23-year-old.
She set me up. That's what this is all about.
Listen,
this isn't
you
about
better-
you and
all
Karen.
I can
This
say-
isn't about
all I
Ryan.
can say-
This is about Asia and me. And it's not me doing this. It's her doing. I have no
I disagree. I
idea.
think
She
it
never
was-
consulted me about any of
You
it.
just better
All
have
of
a
a
new
sudden,
song written. That's all I can
well,
say.
where did that come from? See, she never told me that.
just wants
she,
to-
she got up on the stage at Cannabis Day and plugged the whole thing, and she said her and I were going to have a rolling contest.
Yeah.
All right, my arthritic hands, what the hell? You know, I've rolled a lot of joints in my life. I think I can do
She
it.
wants you to come up with a new creative weed song.
I don't think
that's
she
why-
never told me that.
That's
Well,
why I
I'm
See,
telling
this
you
is
right
what
now.
I learned it elsewhere.
Yeah.
She went on some
I'm
other
willing-
show,
I'm
and she
willing to
says,
help.
"I got some ringer helping me out, some rapper dude that writes shit, and he's going to help me write a pot song, and we'll see what Neil comes up with." Nobody ever told me I had to write a song.
I told you I'd
I
help.
wrote my one song. I'm standing on that one. That's it. I don't know any others. Maybe I.
That's why she wants you to bring a new one.
No,
I think
because
you
she's
could
setting
bring-
me up.
I think you could bring another
She
jam.
wants to beat me up. She wants to win this thing bad. I don't know why, but you know, she's putting everything she has into it. I'll tell you. She's training on a trampoline now, I'm told, and then she's got
Training on a trampoline.
so you expect me to get on a trampoline? I'd be crippled before I ever got there.
Hey, listen.
This
if
is a
my
woman
fat
we're talking about. I'm
bristle
supposed to go
ass
there and
is
fight a
bending
woman.
here-
I don't fight
I'm
women.
fighting a woman.
I know. I think that she just did that to justify what she's doing.
I told her Karen's getting her ass kicked.
I can't do that
You
though.
know, I'm pillow
My
fighting
mom
that
taught me
bitch
better
down
than that.
for
I don't
you.
have it in me. She knows it. I can beat her on the.
That's what I'm saying.
I can beat her on the keyboard. I
I'm
can
full
tell.
faith
I can
in
tell the
Karen.
story better than she can. I can tell the truth better than she can. But in these things that she wants me to compete, I'm supposed to invent dabbing. I don't dab. I told you what happened to me at Greg's place. After that, I never dabbed again. I don't.
Listen, I'm willing
So-
to work on a new song with you.
Okay.
I think we can get it done.
I might be able to help you in the dabbing department.
I know you-
Can't help you with the
I got-
dabbing part. You only got the lungs of your
Ted
fucking
is going to
show.
pinch dab for me.
Okay,
Ted's
good.
pinch dabbing.
Okay.
I got a ringer myself. I
Ted
got
who?
Brian. Bricks Carlisle.
Yeah.
He's quite the musician. He's playing with Trooper, and some of the members from Trooper and another Tom Petty's band have gotten together, and he's playing with these guys. He's singing their songs. He's doing a great job, and he's writing songs. He's written all kinds of songs. He wrote a song for the CSP. He plays outside the RV here. He works here, 3 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So he's writing all these songs. I'm probably going to steal one of his. I already talked to him about it. So
Nice,
I might even sing the CSP song. We'll see.
Nice.
Slim chance he'll accompany me. He has to work that day. So do I, but I'm going to have to go away for a little while and not
Yeah,
work.
not work.
One day
Only
off
'cause
won't
of
kill you,
Asia.
buddy.
You never know. You never know.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't like
I'll
them.
make sure you're medicated.
I'm not an anxious person, but I am anxious when I'm away from here. When things are when we're open.
You won't be
and
that
operating.
far away.
Dude,
That
I had to
helps.
step
You won't be that far away.
I had
You
to
only
step
be
away
minutes
from
away.
Step Funk sometimes to not be there for things.
So you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I
you
mean,
know what I'm
I was
talking about,
still
right?
here.
I really
present.
couldn't go on a vacation myself at
Right.
this point, and now we're even more perilous because they've
I'm just
denied
saying,
our
A
application.
few hours off won't kill you.
And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
I'm
And,
glad.
and I do it every
And
once
it's
in a while.
definitely all about the fun.
It's not like
just
I'm not
supposed to be
gone
good
for a couple
time.
hours here and
My
there.
fight's about our community coming back together and have fun.
I hope so.
We just want to enjoy each other's
I'm going to
company.
do my best,
And we want you to be part
but
of it.
I can't beat this girl.
Right?
I'm pretty sure.
It's
So
not
I
about
hope I
winner,
can have fun
it's
with
not
that.
about win or lose. It's
Right.
about coming out and
I'll be
enjoying
a winner
each
if I
other's
don't.
company.
See, I'll be a winner if I don't beat her.
And
That's
if,
how I feel
and
about
if
that.
we bury our differences, because there's been a lot of
I don't
that
have
in the
much in the way of
community.
differences. I think Asia's done a pretty good job most of the time. I think everybody's doing the best they can with what they know and believe
But
about the
there's no-
world and who they are. And Asia
This is our version
Asia's
of
no
how
different
can we
than
all
that.
get along.
I didn't hold
Bar
anything
fights
against
is just
her.
a hilarious way to bring it about.
Well, Mike Rita's going to be there.
How
Yes.
silly can you be if
Mike
you're
Rita's
beating each
there.
other with a pillow?
Well, how
I don't know
serious?
about you, but every time I had a pillow fight's been fun.
How serious can you be at Mike Rita's there?
And I had a bunch of them.
Like-
Oh, dude, it's gonna be great.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. So
So
come on out and
September
see that.
September 1st.
Yes.
Admission
He's
is
back.
free. There will be all kinds of things there. I would imagine
42
you can
live,
get access to.
threehappycats.biz if
Yeah.
you want tickets for the 42 live. Those you got to purchase.
It'll
Yeah.
be a weed
But
event.
otherwise, general admission is free, and you can see Neil get his ass kicked
Yeah.
or not.
Well, I'm guaranteeing that.
But you'll sing his heart out.
I'm hitting
while
him
he's
out.
getting his ass
I'm hitting him out.
And not on cannabis. And not on cannabis.
Why
He's gonna
not on
sing his
cannabis?
heart out on something else.
That's the only one I know.
But I have faith.
Well, you
I haven't practiced any of
got a
that.
couple of weeks to learn something, so you better
I
get
know.
going.
I can sing Happy Birthday.
Yeah,
I didn't know his birthday.
No,
Or
it's
no.
copyright, though.
It's copyright, yeah.
Copyright?
Copyright,
Yeah.
yeah.
What, happy
So they
birthday?
always say,
Yeah.
like,
It's hilarious that you know that.
Yeah, it is.
It
Happy
was
birthday
on
is
TV.
copyrighted.
Yeah,
It
happy,
is.
yeah.
It is. You have to pay royalties if you want to use it.
So
I know we're late
are
and we're done here, but
This was a fun show. Piece of pot, y'all.
yeah, we can't. We'll have to continue this at another time. The fifth year has started out with a blast.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can't wrap this whole reality TV thing up.
Thanks for having
This
us, Neil.
upcoming year here, we'll get before Judge Judy or whoever
Judge.
whoever the judge is coming up here.
Judge Joe Brown.
We'll see if they're as corrupt as the rest of the system is or not.
Oh, I better take
And it's not us that's on trial, it's the system, and it's Health Canada, it's the federal government, it's the whole idea that public servants would ever have the ability to prohibit free citizens within a free country from accessing what, with any due diligence, would have informed them was simply a medicinal plant, like any other medicinal plant, except for way better than any other medicinal plant on two sides of it. On the one side, it has more benefits and applications than just about any other medicinal plant. In fact, I would argue any other medicinal plant that's in our environment. And on the other side of it, it doesn't have any of the potential downsides that many of these other medicinal plants have. You can overdose to death on just about everything that's out there, every plant that's out there. Cannabis is unique in that. There's a few other ones that you would have a hard time overdosing on, but cannabis does not have an easy limit to overdose fatally on. And so never any justification whatsoever for the criminal law being enacted against free people to access what could benefit so many people in so many ways, has and will continue to do so. This is all just a complete ludicrous, criminal, evil farce that's been hoisted upon unsuspecting people originally who were victims of a media that knew how to manipulate them, and stories told about the evils of this demon plant that was driving people insane and violent, and you needed to have all forces of the government brought against it and anybody that would have anything to do with it. And for decades and decades, for over 100 years, there's been this huge push to spend tax dollars to protect people from this plant that nobody ever needed protecting from in the first place. There was never any justification whatsoever for people being prohibited access to this plant. It should have been embraced by public servants that should have done due diligence here in Canada back in 1923 before enacting these laws against cannabis. You would think that there would be some minister or some wise person, some medical arm of the government or somebody that would have done an investigation into the claims being made by William Randolph Hearst and these other prohibitionists from the South. And they would have determined that this was all a farce and that this plant posed no threat that deserved the criminal law to be used against it. But instead they went along with it, and how much money they got paid to do that or how they profited, we can only surmise. But people have been profiting all along the way during this prohibition, and it's disgusting. It's a terrible, terrible, disgusting farce. It should never have happened in the first place. It should not still be going on now. Trudeau was asked why he was going to have equality with respect to gender in Parliament, and he said, well, it's 2020, isn't it? Or 2018 or whatever year it was, but it was years ago. Well, it's 2023, isn't it? And isn't it about time that the science wins out and the truth wins out and the people win out over corporations? And we take back the power that should be ours as the actual citizens of a free country with so-called public servants that would really serve and protect the individual sovereignty of each individual here, who recognized that their job was to protect us from the very corporations that they're supporting at this time in history. We need a reset of our democracy. We need to find out what it is that free people should have as representatives and what things we need to be protected from and how those protections should be put in place. And it needs to be a human system that cannot just do things by the book, that can adapt to all the different human situations that arise. And that there's right and wrong, but there's a lot of things that are in between right and wrong. And it's great to do the right thing, and we should be doing the right thing all the time, but it's hard to know what the right thing to do is all the time. So we need government that can help us with that. And that's the role of government, is to protect and to help, to educate, to warn, but not to be pawns of a corporate agenda that involves basically enslaving us and monopolizing us and exploiting us for all that they can get. And that's what governance in North America and these free democracies has become. And it's unfortunate that it is that way, but it is that way. And I think we all kind of get a good sense that it is that way as we see how police are rolled out and becoming very much more militarized, and how governments are more and more insulated from any access from the actual people, and how the rich seem to get all the benefits and the poor people are the ones that are used as scapegoats and their situations monetized. So, we will continue to do the show until that's not so much the case, and until, in my case, low barrier access to cannabis is granted, and then I'll let the chips fall where they may. But the government must stop attacking the disabled people of this country by forcibly restricting access to the medicine that would help them the most. And this is the battle that myself and Jeff and Carly and Glenn and Jeremiah and Greg and Dana and so many others have been involved in for a long time here. And we have not won this. We did not win with legalization. We've been made losers of legalization because all of the things that we have been fighting for with our model of legalization, the farmer's market, the access to by medical people to the system, all of those sorts of things has not been granted us through Trudeau's legalization. It is absolutely nothing more than the hostile takeover, attempted hostile takeover of the cannabis industry by a cartel, a very violent and well-leveraged cartel. And we as citizens are the only ones that can fix this, because they own the police and they own the media, they own most of the corporations, or should I say most of the big corporations own them. But in any case, those of us that are just ordinary people are pretty much pawns to these people, and we have to take it upon ourselves to try to do something about it. And nobody's going to pay us to do it. We just have to do it. So find your niche, figure out what's going to work for you, and get on board and be part of the crew. And let's find critical mass somehow, where enough people are doing enough things that the proper changes happen. So we're going to take just a real quick stroll outside. I guess should we?
Nah.
We don't need to.
It's 6:20.
It's a heat
You'll
wave
see you
out
next
there.
week, yeah.
So the weekly THC weather report is it's too hot to go outside because we're a bunch of babies here and we don't know what it's like to live on the prairies when it gets really hot or anything like that. And
I don't know what it's like at home.
Beijing is 36 degrees right now, and there's thunderstorms on the horizon, so the humidity is really high. This is nothing, I'm sure, but we're still not going outside, mostly because we ran late, and it doesn't matter. This is just the start of the 5th season, and who really cares about anything except, how your life is going right this moment. That's all that really matters. That's all that you have. You only have how you feel at this given moment in time. And I recommend that you be part of the winning team, that you be part of a team that's doing something about these injustices that we've exposed here today, because that's the fun stuff in life. When Jeff was going on about all these things that used to be, and that we used to have this and we used to have that, and how much fun we used to have, all that stuff was fun, and it can still be fun. We need to still make it fun.
Pot fights is going to be fun.
Pot fights is going to be fun, and we're going to have more fun events. We'll see what 420 unfolds like next year. I really have no idea. It's quite a mystery how we're going to be doing things in the
really
future.
Want us to come party in Abbotsford.
Yeah, there's lots of places we could do this, and we're going to do it.
The mayor of Abbotsford straight said, if you want to celebrate marijuana, this is the spot.
Well, that's good to know.
Oh, yeah.
So we have other
That's
options
where we
besides
wanna go.
Vancouver. If Vancouver, wants to push us out, well, I'm sure we'll be somebody else's game.
For sure.
So, we're not going away. We're not going to stop. We still need everybody. We still need you to be excited about doing something to make the world right, because we didn't get there with this legalization. We thought we won. They said we won, but they didn't let us win. So be part of the team that's going to win. Stick with us. Find out what's coming up. Check out canamatch.ca. Jeff, anything you want to plug?
No, just took them 12 years to arrest somebody after they made the law in 1923.
I see.
So 12 years after is when they finally got the first arrest.
Well, they should now stop arresting people for the
Right,
next.
but just so you know.
If it takes them another 12 years to get the whole thing right, they shouldn't arrest anybody in the meantime, right?
I don't think they ever arrested me or you, bro.
Yeah, I've been
It's true.
arrested. I've been arrested for weed. I've been arrested for selling weed.
I never have.
No way. They arrested me in 2015. Charged me with selling weed there, but
Because you
then
never know.
But then they dropped the charges 2 years later because that meant I couldn't sue them anymore. So they strung that out.
Were you ever jail time for selling?
Well, just
cannabis?
overnight.
But never like a lengthy
No,
sentence for any.
I got arrested when I was like 18 years old. Pulled over, weed in the car, searched the car, and I spent
Typical bullshit.
my roommate and myself. We spent the night in jail while they tossed our apartment. But I didn't get any jail time for anything.
Was that here in Vancouver?
That was here in Surrey.
Sorry. Okay.
My record's all in Toronto.
There you go.
What they stole from me, I was like 18.
I've
so
only
for,
been convicted for a quarter of marijuana. I got arrested with a quarter in 2004.
So for 3 years, I had been collecting things. I was a bit of a collector, but I've stopped because I lose my collections, it seems, and that's very painful. So that one, they tossed my apartment. I had a wooden box, like a chest, and I had in there all these cannabis artifacts, pipes and other things that I'd come across, things that meant a lot to me,
They jacked it all.
They jacked it. I never saw any of that stuff again ever.
Wow.
I remember one time they had Polaroids, and we'd taken Polaroids of my crop that I'd grown, and the cops, I got into a situation where I had a fight with my girlfriend, and they found, she pointed out my one weed plant I had, but I had all my equipment for my grow in there, and they found my Polaroids, and he's like, "You're getting charged with this." And I'm like, "Man, we smoked all that weed." I was like, "I sold all that weed." I said, "All you got's a Polaroid picture." I'm like, "Am I in any of those pictures?"
Yeah.
He's like, "No."
And even if you were?
I was like, "That ain't gonna work, dude. That crop's long gone. Can't charge me for weed I already fucking produced."
Picture
sold
of weed.
and smoked. Yeah, I got this picture. He's like, "You're going down for this."
We have the hard evidence right here.
That's what
A
he said.
picture of
I
weed.
laughed at him so hard. I said, "You ain't got shit."
That's what happens when your brain gets saturated with too much alcohol.
Good luck in court with that one, Columbo. Jesus.
Crazy.
We're
Crazy.
Piece of pot.
Peace and plot. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a bit of a crazy show. It's been a bit of a crazy ride. We'll continue the ride next week. We'll see what happens here. Things change all the time. Maybe we win this, maybe we don't. With your support, we got a much better chance. So do what you can. In the meantime, it's going to be a week until I see you. Make sure you look after yourself, behave yourself, treat people well, treat yourself well. Most of all, of course, have as much fun as you can.